All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is 5:16. We're going to reconvene into our presentations. This is kind of the informal part of our session, which we allow presentations from the community. And our first presentation is going to be given by our Senior Center. It's going to be an update from Cheryl Hunter, who is our Senior Center Director. Cheryl, it's all yours.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to try to make this really quick because I hear you have quite a schedule today. So
well, you don't have to go. We've got time, so
okay.
Don't have to rush.
Don't have to rush.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I want to give a program update to everyone, let you know what our numbers have been as far as service, and then a little slideshow. It's real quick to kind of show you some images about what we've been doing too. So our numbers served, our lunch program, we've served so far from December to March, 4,480. We've served lunches, that many lunches. So I think that's quite a few lunches.
Yeah.
And then the food giveaway, which is the Food Now, where we do what we call our farmers market 2 Wednesdays a month. We've served 1,016. So we've handed out that much food in those few months. Programs and activities, you can see 6,532, and that's repeated attendance. So that's obviously not the number of individuals, but repeated attendance. And then we're at about 242 members right now, so we're pretty proud of that. Our goal is to try to get that to 300, so we're working on getting the word out that we're around. And this is a little slideshow for you. And I think, let's see, do I just put, nope. All right, how can I make that work? Cheryl, just play? Nope. There we go, thank you. These are just images from the events we've done. Some of the activities, parties. We try to do something special every month. They're getting good, and I think there's 5 of them now. Our staff, Marta and Jessica, are wonderful with decorations and food. Every event is huge, and we spend so much time preparing and having a lot of fun together and making sure that our seniors really have something special every month. And we're growing, and since we've opened up for eating again indoors, we have a lot of people coming back. There's Gary with our pie contest. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. So we try to hit every holiday, and we've got some special celebrations coming up later this year. We're trying to hit as many cultures as we can, so we're really working on that, and we'll report on that in another month. Okay, this is winding down, I promise. Our summer, that was our endless summer party, our luau, Halloween costumes. We do everything we can. So there you go. Thanks for enjoying that with me. And age is just a number. We want you to remember that. So how can you help to keep supporting this? Obviously, donating to our thrift store is very helpful, because we do bring in quite a significant amount that we can then use in these activities and programs and events that we do. So if you donate clothing or shoes, items, purses, things like that, we really appreciate that. That's helpful. And then, of course, Vaughn and the whole volunteer crew for our Desert Rose thrift store, they sort everything, launder everything, mend things, fix things, and it's become quite an operation. If you haven't seen it, you need to come in and check it out. You can volunteer. We always need volunteers, especially during our farmers market on Wednesdays. That's the first and third Wednesday of the month, and it's in the morning. Just show up at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we'll put you to work. And then participating in our events, like the car show that's coming up April 9th. So April 9th, 11 to 3, we have our car show. And we're going to have live music by Southbound and Company. So that's a good classic rock band that you can enjoy. Food is going to be served for purchase and prepared through the Urban Culinary Academy, and that's Melvin Jones and Company. And I hope you can all come out and see what we're doing and check out the cars. I want to thank, we do have some council folks that are going to be there to help judge, and I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to that. Should I name you? Is that okay? Jan and Gary and Russ, and then Mayor Matt is going to try to stop by and check it out. He's got a full schedule. But we appreciate your presence, and we're hoping he can award one of our trophies, so we'll work through that. All right. We also want to announce so that we are full. We cannot take any more cars, and we cannot take any more vendors. So I'm sorry you missed it this year, but I appreciate the overwhelming response. So next year, we'll have you on our list. So that's the Flashback Fun Festival, fundraiser for the city, for the senior center. And you're going to miss out if you don't come and check it out and participate. If you have any questions, you can call me or email me here, and I am happy to answer them. Any questions from you all?
Well, great. Thank you so much. I'll get the questions from the council. I just have one. The city is looking to expand the senior center, and as we do that, any information or any guidance we can use from your seniors, put it out there with them and feed that through our city manager's office. We know we have the Carl May being remodeled, and we're looking at maybe some other areas of that, making that whole area eventually a senior center campus. So if there's any suggestions, please funnel that through the city manager's office.
Yes. Be careful what you wish for, but yes.
that's why I'm kind of funneling it through you.
I think the calls are probably already coming.
Funnel through you to the city manager.
That's probably better. All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Any questions from council?
You do have to be careful. The person that runs the, well, I'm going to tell him, the thrift store, she wants it done right now.
I can imagine.
And because she's got a lot of clothes, and I have on one of her things today.
Yes, she knows her designer stuff. I'm just saying. What she takes in, she does not take in junk. So if you're looking for something nice, she's got some stuff. I want to just a shout out. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but Eddie Johnson has been just an amazing assistant in this whole thing. And I want to just say to Eddie, thank you. This wouldn't be happening without you, sir. So hopefully you'll watch this.
Cars and
he's
veterans,
been amazing.
You talk to Eddie and he'll be there for you, man.
He's gotten almost all of our raffle gifts. He's just been great. So.
Mr. Betts?
Yeah, so I think there's a band playing Southbound, which is quite good, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
So anybody's listening, want to come out, you're not just going to get to see some great shows, you're going to get to hear some great music, right?
Yes, excellent music. One of the best tribute and cover bands in the entire nation, and they travel all over the nation. So we're really lucky to have them.
So when is this happening?
April 9th from 11 to 3.
So that's next weekend, right?
Yes, it's this
Do we
Saturday.
have any banners or signs going up around the city to advertise?
Well, we've been tight on our advertising. We've been trying to do all the little old-fashioned stuff.
So
but,
we got a time if
yeah.
we wanted to put up something on Palm Drive, right?
We can.
Okay, we'll see if we can make that happen. It always helps.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, yeah, wonderful. Just looking forward
Thank
to
you.
it.
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No, thank you, Cheryl. And the pie contest, I am hereby volunteering to sacrifice my waistline again next time you have one of those. I'm more than happy. They had some amazing stuff, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to this weekend too. So you all do a great job, and it's fun to see everybody having so much fun there now that we can do it in public and everything.
Exactly. What a relief. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember? Go ahead.
One more.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to mention Dora and say the last name.
Dora Aguiano?
Yes.
I think it is. Aguiano.
She helped me with Ophelia in putting together little bunnies for the Ophelia, and I told her I'd give her a shout out.
Yes, Dora. We have a craft table, and we have women who sit and just do all kinds of wonderful, magical things all day long, and they're always creating things for our events. So, yes, Dora is talented and amazing. So thank you.
Awesome.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for everything you do. All right, next up is going to be Riverside County Emergency Management Department EMD presentation. Who will be giving that presentation? Awesome.
The,
There you go.
okay, good afternoon, good evening, or, depending if you're a night owl or early bird like me, it's, evening for me. For my husband, he might say it's the afternoon still. But my name is Wendy Hetherington, and I am from Public Health, Riverside County Public Health. And this is a project that we are piloting right now in Desert Hot Springs. And I'm going to go through some slides to describe the our project with our health equity district teams, and then show some of the data about why we selected Desert Hot Springs. Okay, so the objective of this program is to develop 5 health equity outreach district teams in Riverside County to engage underserved and at-risk communities. And what we're really trying to hope for is really get into communities and meet people, go to community events, and find out, what issues are, and linking people to the different services we have. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify target populations and communities for outreach in each of the 5 Board of Supervisor districts. And Desert Hot Springs was selected as a pilot outreach program for District 4, and District 4 itself was selected because we hired Daisy Ramirez, who's actually a Desert Hot Springs resident, as our first program coordinator, and she obviously lives in District 4. And then also with Daisy today is Hector Palomares and Priscilla Galvan, who work for the Emergency Management Department. And so they're piloting this project right now in Desert Hot Springs. And so then the goal is to develop a concept of operations for ongoing community-driven outreach and education in all 5 Board of Supervisor districts, and then other cities within each district or communities. Did I point it there? Okay, so each district program coordinator will work in partnership with an emergency services coordinator from EMD, and will collaborate with county programs offered by public health, behavioral health, housing, and workforce solutions, and others. And then we're also going to be exploring options to partner with CBOs, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, and community leader engagement opportunities to establish community-driven objectives. And we aim to connect, the overall arching goal is to connect appropriate program within the community, to link people to the services they need, wherever they may be, whether they're from the county or from a community-based organization or from the city or other areas. And so we are in the process of meeting with different partners and organizations and interested community leaders like yourself. We have met with representatives from Desert Region Medical Center, Desert Oasis Healthcare, Desert Hot Springs High School, and the Public Safety Academy. And so how we first started to identify which communities we would focus on first, we wanted to select one community first to pilot to see how this would work, and so then develop, like I mentioned earlier, a concept of operations. So those communities in the blue on this map are our highest needs community based on an HPI score, or the Healthy Places Index. The Healthy Places Index was developed by the Southern California Public Health Alliance, which is a collaborative of all the Southern California public health departments. And it has 8 different metrics and uses different population data, poverty level, education level, built environment, environmental scores, et cetera, and creates this index. And the lower the index, the more need you have in that community. So again, the darker color on here, the darker blue are our highest need, and then as the blues progress, they're still high need communities, but the darkest blue, and Desert Hot Springs, you could see, is right there in the mid of high need based on this index. So this is all the cities and communities in Riverside County and their Healthy Places Index score. You could see where Desert Hot Springs is. For reference, we have all some of the desert communities there, but for other areas in the county, for instance, Hemet is right there next to Desert Hot Springs. The city of Riverside is right there next to Palm Springs. And then Corona is near La Quinta in terms of the Healthy Places Index. And just as a note, the Healthy Places Index is updating their data. They're having their big launch tomorrow. So we could see if Desert Hot Springs has moved up on the after tomorrow. And so there's things called social determinants of health, which are items or things that impact people's overall health. And in Desert Hot Springs, the life expectancy is lower than for Riverside County as a whole. Income is lower, unemployment is about the same, and education is lower. And then when we look at leading causes of death, based on a couple years ago, COVID-19 wasn't anywhere near the leading causes of death. It's actually number 2 as well for the county as a whole. These are 2021 numbers, and they're preliminary because there's still some final cause of death data being finalized. Number 4, accident poisoning. That's actually our unintentional overdoses. And while 35 deaths doesn't seem like a lot, that's actually more than double than what it was a couple years ago for Desert Hot Springs. So one of my programs I manage is our overdose prevention program for public health, and overdose prevention is one of the things that I really strive to engage more people about, and addressing the stigma of addiction and helping people get the help they need. And just as a reference, in Riverside County as a whole, accidental overdoses are the number 7 cause of death for 2021, preliminary. When we look at COVID-19 vaccination rates, Desert Hot Springs is actually doing great compared to the county overall. The unvaccinated rate for Desert Hot Springs is about 10 percentage points lower than the county overall. However, there's about 9,000 residents that are currently eligible for their booster that still have not received their booster. So that's actually, the community we really want to target. Getting those unvaccinated people at this point is hard to move the dial, but we know the people who have already, received 1 or 2 doses of their vaccine would be more willing to get their booster. And then when we look at COVID-19 vaccination rates by age group, again, Desert Hot Springs has done outstanding compared to the county overall in terms of getting all age groups vaccinated. Those kiddos, the 5 to 17-year-olds, are a tough bunch to get vaccinated, and those numbers overall for the whole county have been relatively low, but Desert Hot Springs has done better in that age group. So then when we look at some self-reported data from some of the population-based surveys that are done. For physical health, self-reported poor physical health status, it's slightly higher than the county overall. Mental health, again, self-reported poor mental health status, slightly higher than the county overall. And dental health, we need to get people out to the dentist. I know I hate going to the dentist, and every time I have to remind my husband, he says, "Do we have to go again?" But it's one of those things, and so linking people to dental care is also important. And so some of the data that is on this slide and the Healthy Places Index I mentioned, that's where you could go and pull your own HPI data. Like I mentioned, they're updating it tomorrow. The big launch is tomorrow, so maybe wait a couple days and you can go visit there and see how Desert Hot Springs has done. And here is my contact information if you need to contact me in the future.
Great, we really appreciate the presentation. I'll open it up for questions if that's okay.
Yep.
Anyone? Mr. Nadine?
I just have one. So are you going to be housed here in the city? Or are you going to be in the resource center? or are you just basically out of Riverside and you come and do the statistics here?
No, Daisy is housed in, her office actually is in Indio, but she's out here. We're hiring a health education assistant to be housed out here as well. And then also, I think EMD, you are hiring someone to be out here as well.
Okay, here in the city.
Not the city, District 4.
Okay.
Yeah?
I don't know if I asked you or staff for a copy of the PowerPoint, because there's NCOs that could use that.
Okay.
So I got the same question. Are you going to have a physical presence here in the city, or is it going to be down in Indio?
Well, we're going out to the city and city events and actually being here in person, meeting with people in person. But we don't have an office per se in Desert Hot Springs.
Okay, so just when there's an event here, you'll be out here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
What I would recommend is the resource center is going to be housed out of the mental health facility. And this is a great opportunity to jump on board. That way we have someone here
Okay.
that can deal with the community, involve in the community. And those statistics are alarming to me.
Right.
So anything that we can do, we don't have to be driving to Indio. I work in Indio, I work for the county also. And trust me, I wish I could be here, working out of the Desert Hot Springs.
Is that where the WIC office
Yes.
is? Okay, because
Yes.
we could actually take a cubicle or two in there.
That'd be
and have
great.
That. Okay. I'll take that suggestion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and thanks for coming and looking at some of those statistics. They are rather alarming. I'm happy to see that you're coming out here, but it shows the need that we have in this city for better healthcare facilities. And I'm hoping that as we grow and as things get, we have a better population bump here, that the city will be able to attract more healthcare providers out here, because it is difficult to get healthcare on
Yes.
this side of the freeway. And I think with some better healthcare here, we would certainly reflect that, considering especially how many residents we have that are on Medi-Cal. And so, and everybody has to go across the freeway to really get anything. So as our long-term growth keeps going the way it's going, we're going to need to have some more facilities out here. And I think it's paramount about us on the council to make sure that we can attract those kind of healthcare providers that we need here.
So then, sounds like they can stop in down at that facility. As council members, we have people contact us all the time, with questions. I've referred a couple people to Riverside County Health Department a couple of times in the past month. They're looking for where to go and ask them. So can I direct them down to the,
You could direct them to my email up there. My phone number is down there below as well. And then I could give Daisy the contact information and she could share her contact
okay,
information.
could you send out notice when you're going to be in town so people that just want to walk in and see you rather than pick up a phone can find you?
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for all of you attending tonight and being here. A lot of good information there, and please come back, and whatever you need from us, don't hesitate to reach out to our city manager's office, or all of us have emails. We'd be happy to help participate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Beverlin, it's all you.
Got 10 minutes.
Yeah, got some time.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Nice to see you all. Tonight, I wanted to introduce you to two of the new members of the management team for the battalion. We hired two new battalion chiefs that will be serving the city of Desert Hot Springs. First, before I introduce them, I'd like to just give a public acknowledgement and thanks to their predecessors, Battalion Chief Mike Martinez and Division Chief Jesse Park. They both worked here for a couple of years and did a great job for the city, served the public very well, and they were very, very good teammates, and they're sorely missed. So just wanted to say thanks to them, and I'll introduce your two new battalion chiefs. So both of these gentlemen have been in the fire business for a very long time. They've seen over the years, couple decades at least, some of the biggest changes that have happened in the fire service in over the last 50 years. Both of them have a pretty well-rounded career experience level. I'll introduce Tim Bingham first. Tim, come on up. Tim Bingham is going to be assigned here in Battalion 10 and Desert Hot Springs. And Tim's been on the job for 29 years.
Not that you're counting.
He's worked all over the place in the county. He's worked out in the Coachella Valley in La Quinta. He's worked on the mountaintop. He's worked in Paris. And his most recent assignment was in our emergency command center, which is a pretty high stress level, handling all the dispatchers. Unlike a lot of dispatch centers, ours is a command center. So before any of our resources actually get on scene, this gentleman here is the incident commander until somebody gets on scene. So he's making a lot of calls out of there, and it's probably served him pretty well to be able to step up to the next level. So this is Tim Bingham, and I'll let him say a couple words.
Hello. Thank you for this. This is wonderful. I'm a big fan of the city. I started working here as a firefighter in 1992. I remember Mayor Matus, very active member of the volunteer fire company. Chief hit some bullet points. I'm just here to provide oversight, supervision, and contacts. You got a message from me this weekend, city manager. And I look forward to growing with you guys, and it's been a good couple months of ongoing learning. And I'm excited to continue under the tutelage here at Chief Beverlin and make sure you guys get the best services we can. That's my goal.
Awesome. Thank
Any
you.
questions?
They're satisfied so far. There will be questions in the future, though.
Yes. Phone is always on. And I like coming to your events. If you notice, we've been pretty active. Chief has we have a shared calendar, and we are on top of it. And we come out here. I got to meet Tucson, the dog, and it's been a wonderful 2 months.
Great.
And then I'll introduce Battalion Chief Don Camp. Don also has been in the service for quite a while. Don has worked in multiple locations throughout the county. He has worked on the hazardous materials response team as a hazmat specialist. He's also a paramedic. And his last assignment was in the city of San Jacinto, working as a fire captain at Fire Station 78. One of the cool things about Don is that he's one of our leaders in our employee services group, which takes a lot of calls these days from the stress of being a first responder. And so he's one of our guys that takes a phone call from some of our folks that may be in distress and gets them the help that they need. So that's one of the programs that's near and dear to my heart, and it is for him too. So I'll introduce Don Camp.
Good evening. One of the things that I'm really excited about being here in Desert Hot Springs, my last two assignments have been city contracts, City of Norco and City of San Jacinto. So I'm looking forward to being at this level and interacting with the city and making not only the city grow, but our department grow. One of the few things that I've done in my past assignments is we started a fire explorer program in the city of Jurupa Valley, and then ultimately moved it to the city of Norco. Another thing that I'm real passionate about is preparing our citizens for when 911 isn't there. Some of the things that we've done with that is instituted community CPR programs. We've also instituted community Stop the Bleed programs, something that has shown its benefit and its value time and time again with some of the violent incidents that have occurred in our nation over the last few years. So like Tim said, my phone's always on. I called Mr. Rainey today. I seem to be leaving a lot of messages for him recently. The guys are calling me a black cloud because it seems if I'm on duty, something's going to happen. So they're excited about that, but I don't know that I want that label. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you guys for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working to make the community a better and a safer place.
It's exciting to hear about both of you being here and what you're bringing back to our community that's been lacking for a while because of staffing and that pandemic thing that went on. But getting back to what we really need in our community with the CPR training, and our PSA program at the high school is just exploding with students that want to learn and want a career in fire services. So this is really good to hear.
Well, very good. Be happy to answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, I'll sit down.
Any questions for the chiefs?
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. With that, we have no other presentations tonight. We're going to take about a 13-minute break. We'll come back at 6 o'clock.
Test, test, test. Testing.
The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. Please complete a speaker request form, which can be found to the left of the entrance to the City Council chambers, if you would like to address the City Council on a non-agenda item. If you would like to comment on an agenda item, a speaker request form is not required. Public comments will be heard during the agenda item. Please submit the completed speaker request form to the city clerk seated to the left of the speaker podium. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown timer will appear on the screens located around the council chambers. All comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum. Due to the Brown Act, which is California's open meeting laws, only items listed on the agenda can be addressed by the City Council. The City Council is unable to respond to matters raised on non-agenda items. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time in the order that the forms are received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. Please complete a speaker request form, which can be found to the left of the entrance to the City Council chambers, if you would like to address the City Council on a non-agenda item. If you would like to comment on an agenda item, a speaker request form is not required. Public comments will be heard during the agenda item. Please submit the completed speaker request form to the city clerk seated to the left of the speaker podium. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown timer will appear on the screens located around the council chambers. All comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum. Due to the Brown Act, which is California's open meeting laws, only items listed on the agenda can be addressed by the City Council. The City Council is unable to respond to matters raised on non-agenda items. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time in the order that the forms are received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. Please complete a speaker request form, which can be found to the left of the entrance to the City Council chambers, if you would like to address the City Council on a non-agenda item. If you would like to comment on an agenda item, a speaker request form is not required. Public comments will be heard during the agenda item. Please submit the completed speaker request form to the city clerk seated to the left of the speaker podium. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown timer will appear on the screens located around the council chambers. All comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum. Due to the Brown Act, which is California's open meeting laws, only items listed on the agenda can be addressed by the City Council. The City Council is unable to respond to matters raised on non-agenda items. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time in the order that the forms are received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. Please complete a speaker request form, which can be found to the left of the entrance to the City Council chambers, if you would like to address the City Council on a non-agenda item. If you would like to comment on an agenda item, a speaker request form is not required. Public comments will be heard during the agenda item. Please submit the completed speaker request form to the city clerk seated to the left of the speaker podium. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown timer will appear on the screens located around the council chambers. All comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum. Due to the Brown Act, which is California's open meeting laws, only items listed on the agenda can be addressed by the City Council. The City Council is unable to respond to matters raised on non-agenda items. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time in the order that the forms are received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. Please complete a speaker request form, which can be found to the left of the entrance to the City Council chambers, if you would like to address the City Council on a non-agenda item. If you would like to comment on an agenda item, a speaker request form is not required. Public comments will be heard during the agenda item. Please submit the completed speaker request form to the city clerk seated to the left of the speaker podium. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown timer will appear on the screens located around the council chambers. All comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum. Due to the Brown Act, which is California's open meeting laws, only items listed on the agenda can be addressed by the City Council. The City Council is unable to respond to matters raised on non-agenda items. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time in the order that the forms are received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Desert Hot Springs City Council meeting.
Good evening, everybody. We have about 1 minute before we start. If you're speaking on items not on the agenda, as I said in the video, the blue cards are up there, city clerk's right there. If you're speaking on items on the agenda, you don't have to fill out a blue card. We'll just call public comment, and you can come up and give comment during those items. It is now 6 o'clock, so we are going to start our meeting. I have all the council present, so I will call the meeting to order for the City of Desert Hot Springs regular meeting of the City Council. The City Council serving as a successor agency to the former Redevelopment Agency Board for Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. This is our 6 p.m. regular session. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Betts.
Present.
Councilmember Nunez.
Present.
Councilmember Pai.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardner.
Present.
Mayor Mattis.
Present. We do a couple things tonight. First, not yet, no, not until I get there. So we, unfortunate news came in last week of the passing of Gerald Pisha, who was a former mayor of Desert Hot Springs. He served from 1993 to 1998. We still think maybe 99. But I wanted to read what was posted in the Desert Sun in his obituary this weekend. A lot of times our jobs up here becomes thankless. We volunteer our time for the most part as elected officials to get up here and serve our communities. And a lot of times you don't get recognition for what you do until it's too late sometimes. And unfortunately, I think Mayor Pisha did accomplish a lot during his time on the city council and deserves everything he's going to be talked about here in the near future here. But Mayor Pisha was born in Detroit, Michigan on February 14th, 1940. He was a master sergeant for the U.S. Air Force and then retired. He passed away at the age of 82 on Thursday, March 24th, 2022 in Desert Hot Springs, California. He served 23 years in the United States Air Force and spent 19 of those years as a chief aboard Air Force One. Delighting 5 presidents with delicious cuisines. He retired in 1980 and moved to Desert Hot Springs, where he worked for the Postal Service as a supervisor and postmaster. Jerry was an active member of the VFW, American Legion, the Moose Lodge, and the Elks Lodge for many years. He serves as the exalted ruler of the Elks and cooked delicious meals there and at other organizations for hundreds of people. Jerry also served as the mayor of Desert Hot Springs from 1993 to 1998. Actively pursued the development of the Desert Hot Springs Police Department and was responsible for the procurement and preservation of Cabot's Pebble Museum. And then it goes on to talk about who's survived from. I knew his daughter, who was a teacher here in the community, and she notified me recently. I stated that we would have a moment of silence for him tonight. And then on April 14th, they will have a memorial service at Weefels in Palm Springs at 9 a.m. And then he will be taken to Riverside National Cemetery for a burial at 2 p.m. So I'd like to ask everyone to stand tonight. On April 14th, we will lower the flags in Desert Hot Springs to half staff for his respect. Please join me in taking a moment of silence. Thank you. If you could remain standing, Bishop Taylor will be coming up to give the invocation tonight, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Nunez. Would you do us a pleasure tonight?
If you will, bow your heads and let's pray. Father God, we thank you for allowing us to be here. As each and every one of these council members come forth to do their civic duty, I'm asking that you would give them wisdom and knowledge and understanding and compassion for that which they need to carry out or perform that which you have called them to do. In the name of Jesus we pray. Thank God. Amen. Amen. And amen.
Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before I move on, I failed to allow Councilmember Pai, who's actually served in some organizations with Mayor Pisha and actually was elected not long after he left office. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, I was first appointed to the city council when Jerry Pisha was mayor. And he also helped develop our police department. And he helped develop Cabot's Museum. And he was a good mayor. And I ended up being on the Elks because he and the city manager at the time decided that's where I belong. And he was exalted ruler, so he was the one that initiated me in. One of the things that I liked about him, he and his wife had a caravan, and they used to take seniors to play bingo at the casinos. And I and Elizabeth Donnelly was on the council at that time, and my daughter, we decided to go because all of these people were going. I only did it once, and that's all I wanted to do, but it was a good thing, and the seniors wanted the excitement. But you would see the children of the seniors hurriedly walk them up to the van because they needed the respite. So that was interesting for him, and he did do exquisite meals at the Elks, and he's going to be sorely missed.
All right, may you rest in peace, and to the family, we reach out to you, and again, on April 14th, the city in respect will lower its flags at half-staff. All right, with that, our next item is the city attorney's report in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have no reportable action.
All right, our next item is the approval of the agenda. At this time, the council may pull any items from the consent calendar. Before you do that, or if you're going to do that, do we have any public comments on the consent calendar?
No, we do not.
All right, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on the consent calendar?
Like to pull item 8 from consent
Is it a general question or a discussion?
for a second vote.
Okay, so we'll need to pull it. All right, you're asking to pull item 8. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented, pulling item 8 from consent.
I'm sorry, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's a
I'll
motion and a second. At this time, we'll be is there any discussion? Please vote. Councilmember Gardner doesn't have his up on the screen.
I'll vote for you, don't worry.
You can just give him a voice.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to public comments. Again, if you're coming into the audience and you want to speak on an item not on the agenda, please fill out a blue card, give it to the city clerk. We'll start with our first public comment, which is Ricardo Loretta. And as Ricardo's coming up, I wanted to say congratulations on your Senior Inspiration Award for the City of Palm Desert this year. I was there to give for Desert Hot Springs, and Ricardo received for the City of Palm Springs for all your work you do with Dr. Carry-On Foundation and Rotary and everything else that you do. Thank you for all that work, and congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to have you push the button right there at the very bottom. There you go.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. The Senior Inspiration Award, I thought was for old people. And the mayor of Palm Desert told me that I was right, it was. So I'm happy to be here, and I am Ricardo Loretta. In this capacity, I'm speaking as the executive director of the Dr. Carry-On Foundation. And I'd like to read a very short letter that I will then leave with you, if I may. Dear friends, once again, we renew our invitation to you to partner with us in providing education opportunities for the youth in Desert Hot Springs. For 31 years, our foundation has helped Mexican-American boys and girls in the Coachella Valley realize their dreams of a better life through education. In the past 6 years alone, 21 students from Desert Hot Springs High School have received $45,000 in scholarship awards. We are proud that many of our awardees return to the desert for very rewarding careers. And one great example is Carry-On scholar Mr. Danny Porras, known to you as your assistant city manager. Through our 3-for-1 program, contributing partners have their donations doubled or even tripled, so that a $1,000 investment from you becomes $2,000 to $3,000 in scholarships in your name. I'm hopeful that the City of Desert Hot Springs will help us again and if at all possible, provide an investment in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. That could translate to as much as $30,000 in new scholarships for Desert Hot Springs High School. Thank you in advance.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Our next speaker tonight will be Gretchen Gutierrez of the Desert Valley Builders Association.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff. This is a rare occurrence. Mark the day down. It's April the 5th. I'm bringing you all money. So, okay, there's a little chuckle there in the room. Okay. I'm actually standing here tonight not with the representation for Desert Valley Builders Association, but rather the Coachella Valley Regional Housing Trust. So several years ago, with the dissolution of RDA monies and funding streams that went on throughout the cities and things, one of the investments that you all made was a small contribution over to the Housing Trust. The Housing Trust took that contribution along with monies that we already had on hand with the intent that we would either be holding a housing conference, a housing summit, or at the time we thought we were going to be starting a mortgage assistance program here in the city of Desert Hot Springs with a model. We actually did the legwork, started to look at housing that was available in existing housing stock, what it would cost to acquire, refurbish, provide lending for it. Unfortunately, our consultant decided to retire and move to Mexico. So, you know, we had a few challenges internally within that particular housing trust. Fast forward a couple of years, it did not see much action. There was a number of other groups throughout the state and the region that were holding housing meetings, including SCAG as well as other regional groups. And then we hit the spring of 2020 and COVID shut us all down, basically. With that being said, the Housing Trust and the number of the folks that were involved with that trust are no longer involved with it. They've either retired, in one instance passed away, and so the trust has kind of basically started to go off into the sunset. With that, the existing members of the committee have determined that they're going to close the trust and we're going to refund back to any of the entities that we still had cash on hand for, and one of them was for the city of Desert Hot Springs. So that leads me to my check that I have in hand. So the amount that was given to the trust several years ago, as I say, was $6,000. That's what I'm bringing you back this evening. So I have a check made out to the city of Desert Hot Springs. I'm going to hand it over here to this side of the agenda, dais rather, and that's it for me. I don't know if y'all want to ask any questions about it or not, but that's it.
You can't ask questions tonight, but were you and Roberto working together?
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, he was going to get that check.
Yeah, he thought.
So, yeah, anyways, but
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good luck with using it in an appropriate manner.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I forgot to read my spiel before public comments. I know we still have a handful, so I will read this at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, any persons may make comments on matters of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council not listed on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the City Council shall not take action on or discuss matters raised during the public comment portion of the agenda that are not listed on the agenda. Speakers are all comments are to be directed to the City Council and shall be devoid of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain professional courteous decorum during public comments. Basically says that you're here to make your comments. We cannot talk back and forth with you. Donna Lozano, you are next. I know that you have a couple things here. You can talk generally, but you do also want to speak on item 2. You'll have to wait on item 2's item until it gets there. Unless you have somewhere where you have to be and you can.
No,
Or you like
I
to hang
have to
out?
be here.
All right, you can hang out with us.
Thank
Great.
you.
All right.
And thank you very much, Honorable Mayor, Council, and all y'all. I'm Donna Lozano. I've lived in this town, this beautiful town of ours, since 1999, and I've watched it grow, and I love it a lot. I don't have children of my own. Until recently, I was never married. And so I took it upon myself to support the youth in this town as best I can. So I'm a member of the Desert Hot Springs Women's Club, and today I found out that we have, we're giving $22,500 in 12 scholarships to our high school students that measure up, and I won't read their names. We're also giving money to the Desert Hot Springs Youth Football, to Little League Baseball, to Coach Rittenhouse, I think it is, Youth Golf, and the Rotary Youth Program. I'm very proud of that. We work really hard from October to May, and in May we give it all away. Additionally, we are giving, and importantly, we are giving money to each and every school here in Desert Hot Springs. The money goes on beyond just scholarships and our hope for the future. Our hope for the future goes deeply. I also belong to the Spa City Paleteers. It's an art club, and we have members all across Coachella Valley and as well as on the upper desert as well. And we too award scholarship. We do our best to raise money, again, without meeting in the summer. We meet at the library now on the third Wednesday, and all y'all are invited. We give a lesson so you learn something, an expensive lesson from a great artist, and they change monthly. So the Spa City Paleteers Art Club gave 3 scholarships to art students. Art is hard to find in our schools today. It's important to celebrate and to support our youth here in this lovely town. One other thing that I'd like to mention is Veterans Park, I think, should be renamed, and it should be renamed in the honor of Edward G. Johnson, who's worked so dang hard to make it what it is today, and I'd like you to take that under consideration while we're still a city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Maricela Tirado? Sorry if I messed up your last name there. Tirado, got it.
Hello, I want to say thank you for giving me the chance to speak today. I started a petition on my son. This is my son. He's an 8-year-old boy. He was hit by a car March 21st. And I'm just here. I'm going to read you the petition that I started. It says, the current traffic condition in the streets of Desert Hot Springs are very dangerous, and we need to increase traffic safety as soon as possible. Many parents do not feel having their children play outside. They do not feel safe having their children play outside in their neighborhoods. There have been many recent accidents near our neighborhood due to lack of adequate traffic safety measures in place. I'm just asking for some speed bumps. We need to do something about this. You know, there's been a lot of accidents. The cars go way too fast in Desert Hot Springs. That's all I'm asking for.
So our hearts go out to you. I'll have our city manager reach out and get a meeting with you, okay?
Thank you.
You're so welcome. All right, we'll move to Kyle, is it Mabry?
Hey, how you doing? My name is Kyle Mabry. I'm a local resident here in Desert Hot Springs. I've been here for over like 10 or about 10 years. And I first want to start off by thanking the mayor and city council for all your accomplishments. You guys have been great, and you guys are really the dream team here, and you guys are making things turn around really well. The topic that I wanted to speak about was vacation rentals. I know a lot of people have been opposing vacation rentals online, and I thought I was going to have more opponents here. So, but anyhow, I wanted to speak positively about vacation rentals. I've lived next to a vacation rental and had no problems. You know, it was very nice to see vacationers come out and actually enjoy our city. You know, they get to enjoy what we fell in love with the city as far as our weather and our community, the views, and really bring back that desirability to make Desert Hot Springs a tourist destination. Desert Hot Springs has been a tourist destination for generations, and we've lost some of that desirability. And you know, Airbnb and vacation rentals are actually bringing that back. And along with bringing opportunity for our community, gives us the opportunity to rent out that extra room, rent out that back house, maybe even purchase a second home. So it really gives a lot of opportunity for the people of our community, and it's an endless opportunity. Along with that, it increases our tax revenue for tourism, which used to be the backbone of our community. sorry I'm a little nervous. If I pass out, just
You're fine. You're fine.
renew my reset my
I've got
minute and a half.
firefighters and police officers. Someone will resuscitate you.
Thank you. But no, it's really bringing a lot of desirability back to our community. People are coming out here and they're loving it, and that's what we really need in this town. We're a tourist destination. We have cannabis. You guys have brought a lot to our community as far as the cannabis community, making up like nearly 38% of our revenue here. But in the future, I mean, you guys have been very good at seeing ahead of the curve and being out of the box. And you can kind of see that in the future with federal legalization, the cannabis community is going to change, and they're going to be able to open up startup businesses in other towns, cities, states for a fraction of the cost that they can do it here for. So, thinking ahead of the curve, our tourism market really is an opportunity, and it's a great opportunity for those in our community, the residents here. I'm local here. I've been here for a while. I'm just a truck driver. I'm not a rich investor from out of state or anything like that. I'm a local DHS guy. You can see me at
Kyle,
the State of Brothers
I'm
every
going to have
time.
to wrap up because you used your 3 minutes.
Okay. Anyhow, I just like you to keep it in consideration to continue to allow Airbnbs to do business in town.
Great. I know that's an item coming up on an agenda in the future, so please watch for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. My last speaker tonight on open or public comments is it Andre Richard?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andre Richard. I represent myself, my wife tonight. She is with me. And I also represent about 8 neighbors. Unfortunately, I was misinformed. I was told there is actually a topic on the agenda where we discuss vacation rentals. That's why I'm here.
Not tonight, but feel free to do it here.
Yeah.
Make your comments tonight here.
Unfortunately, I cannot agree with this gentleman at all. Not at all. Our neighbor, a very nice gentleman, we grew together within weeks and months like friends until we found out the only purpose why he bought his house next door was he turns this into a money pit. This is not a residential area no more where I live. It's more like a hotel zone. This is a gorgeous house. He put a lot of money in it with a nice pool. And now, as I used to know it from my younger years, every house with a pool has on the weekend party pool or pool parties. And that's exactly what happens. It's loud frequently. During the day, at night, the police had to come. There were parties until 3 a.m. in the morning. And when the police showed up and had to wait until they finally opened up the door, they were shut down. And once the police left, I hear very, very bad cussing words yelled in the air in the midnight, 3 a.m., because of the guy who eventually called the cops. And weeks later, I found a gift which I saw in my neighbor's house, deposited in my yard, and 60 BBs. So this is disgusting. And I was messaging my neighbors about this tonight, about the agenda, which I was wrong about. And from all eight people I addressed, 6 returned and said, we vote no. So I wonder they're not here, but this is a really, really big concern. And I'm really against this. I'm really against this from my heart, and I will do everything to oppose that, because wherever you have a nice house with a pool, it's going to be rented by young people, especially in all these big events in the Coachella Valley, and we have to suffer and feel like we're in a hotel zone, and our peaceful dwelling is disturbed. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments tonight. I'm going to go to, do you have anybody that's chimed in on Zoom that wants to speak in public comment? Did you want to start with just putting the names up and we'll go from there?
First, we have Andrew Ruff.
Andrew, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak. I'm a homeowner and taxpayer in Desert Hot Springs, and I do rent my house out to short-term travelers when I'm not there. And I try to do everything I can to be a good neighbor and only let responsible tenants in my home. I completely understand there are concerns about short-term rentals in the community on the issue of real estate prices or housing shortages. Those sorts of things are going on everywhere. It's not unique to Desert Hot Springs. There are other large-scale economic forces at work. I don't think that is fair or accurate to blame a housing shortage on approximately 70 active rental permits in the city. And if you look at the vacancy rate of the city, it's actually a bit higher than the Riverside County and the state level overall. I don't think a ban on short-term rentals is going to solve some of these other macroeconomic forces that are causing high housing prices all over the country. What I do think short-term rentals can do for our city is to be part of the economic resurgence. We're going through a revitalization now with a renewed focus on tourism and the downtown corridor. But the fact remains that Desert Hot Springs is last place in tourism dollars in the Coachella Valley. And as part of an effort to bring more economic vitality to the area, short-term rentals can be one opportunity for travelers to come to our city and not just contribute the 12% tax revenue that travelers pay directly to the city, but also restaurants and shops and retail, construction, solar installers, all the other sorts of economic drivers that this industry can bring to our town. Now, those of us who register for permits and participate in the city regulations, we all want to be good neighbors and be responsible owners. We support sensible regulation that comply with the noise ordinances and don't allow big parties. I think a lot of the problems are from unpermitted, unregistered rentals, folks that are trying to fly under the radar and not be responsible. So we would certainly support increased regulation and enforcement to weed out those irresponsible units rather than eliminating an entire travel opportunity and economic booster to the city because of some bad apples. So again, thank you for your time tonight. Happy to be involved.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Sakura Kim Lee.
I don't see him on the screen.
Next, we have Stephanie Martin.
Hi, good evening to the mayor and the city council and my fellow residents. This is Stephanie Martin, and I'm a resident in the Ormond Heights community. And just to kind of follow up on the public discussion at present, I personally am not against the vacation rentals. I have a vacation rental property next to my home, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity to make friends and to advertise freely about the goodness of our city, to have people coming in and, again, enjoying the uniqueness and what our city, what they've come here for. Maybe it's the cannabis, maybe it's the spa and the the restoring curative waters that they know so much about. But the reality is, when you get to town and there is a lot of abandoned properties, you've got to wonder, how did that get there? Especially these mid-century modern multi-million-dollar properties. How did it get that way? Did the means justify the ends? And how can we really lean into what people are here for and not scare people away and build up the economy? And I do think that the Airbnbs is like the way of the future, and it is cool and hip. And I think we should kind of be, kind of supportive of that rather than against it. Another little topic I really wanted to speak about this evening is kind of like the way we are organized and prioritized in the resources in our budget and how we're spending, and our resources such as street sweepers in a desert. Does that make sense? I don't know. But also pools. I know I'm kind of, I come from Coachella, the east side of the Coachella Valley, and I know in the 3 years I lived there, I never once was bothered by the code enforcement about an above ground swimming pool that you can buy in any box store in the desert heat. I think we should really look at some of these things where are we scaring away some of these money makers, these good citizens, these law-abiding taxpayer citizens that, hey, we come here to be free. This is a rural area after all. You know, we do need to work together here and make sure we are feeling that our needs are getting met and our priorities are getting served here. And when you look around and see a lot of these $1 million spa hotels being totally graffitied and all the electrical units being pulled out and looking like they've totally been taken over by the home. Anyways, I guess my 3 minutes is up.
We appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Sakura Kim Lee.
We're having some technical difficulties. Why don't we go ahead to the next speaker?
Stephanie Martin. I'm sorry.
Stephanie Martin,
That's
just
not
go.
Stephanie Martin.
Hi, I appreciate giving the chance to speak on these issues this evening, and thank you so much.
Next speaker. Just be a minute. We're trying to figure out who's speaking on public comments and who's speaking in items. They'll get to us the next speaker here just in a second.
Nellie Arakelian.
Nelly, you have to unmute yourself. All right, we'll move to the next speaker.
Let's try Maria Manriquez.
Maria? Need to unmute yourself?
Hi, I need to talk on the agenda number 2, please.
Okay, we'll keep you on the agenda for that. Nelly, were you able to unmute? I don't think so. All right. Anyone else on that list is going to speak tonight?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. We'll move on from public comments and move to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. 2 updates. First from our Finance Director.
Good evening. So for our financial highlights as of April 4th, for the fiscal year 21-22 revenues, we've had over $18.2 million, which is 57% of the amended budget. Last year at this time we had almost $14.8 million, which is 58% of the budget, and 2 years ago there was $13.7 million at 60% of the budget. And there we go. For fiscal year 21-22 expenditures, we have expenditures of $17.9 million, which is 57% of the amended budget. Last year at this time we had a little over $17 million, which is at 63% of the budget, and 2 years ago we were at $16.7 million, which was at 70% of the budget.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And now we have an update on our parks from our Public Works Director.
Thank you. We have some exciting park projects coming up. I just want to give an update on the ones that we've already completed. The following is updates on park upgrades, projects for Mission Springs Park, Ormond Park, and Tedesco Park. Back on March 15th, 2020, City Council approved the agreement for Musco Lighting to allow full field night use. Geotechnical engineering is the next step on this process. The picture on the left is what it should look like. The picture on the right is the one what it currently looks like. This is at Mission Springs Park. The restrooms, this is showing the condition that the restrooms were in due to vandalism. This is a picture of while construction was going on with the high-grade steel that was installed and welded. And then this is the current conditions of the restrooms at Mission Springs Park. At Ormond Park, Ormond Park, on March 15th, 2022, City Council approved the agreement for Musco Lighting to allow full field night use. Geotechnical engineering is the next step. The picture on the left is what the lighting should be. Picture on the right is the current condition it's in. About 25,000 square feet of Angel Mix infill mix was added to both baseball fields at the park. The pitching tunnel, the netting was repaired. We installed 4 LED lights, electrical outlet, and a light timer in the batting cage. At Tedesco Park, the LED walking light paths were installed around, the LED lights were installed around the walking path on the north end of Tedesco Park around the drainage location. The picture on the left is heading northbound, the picture on the right is heading southbound. And the LED lights were installed throughout the park, which is a picture on the left. And then the parking lot located on the south end of the park by the basketball courts is the picture on the right. And that concludes my update at the parks.
Thanks, Nick. That concludes my report.
A question of staff, if I could. The walking path that goes around Mission Springs Park, we've had some complaints from residents as the sprinklers go off, sections of that get muddy, and we were working towards a solution, I thought, on that. Have we made any progress on eliminating the muddy path problem?
We could figure out what's going on with that and adjust it. It's probably an irrigation system. We could get it going.
Well, I mean, when you got to water the grass, it gets the path, and the path is dirt, so it turns to mud. And it needed to be either some type of impervious or something that stays, that doesn't get muddy when it gets wet. So
Right.
if we could look at that, if that's come up quite a few times.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
One more question. We were working on a left turn signal at Golden Eagle Way to alleviate some significant traffic congestion, and I might have asked this before, but hey, well, why not ask again? Can we get an update on that one?
Yes. The traffic signal is actually in plan check, and I did speak with the engineer earlier today. We plan on having everything completed and ready to go by the end of this month for RFP. So
then I won't ask again. Thank you.
With the mayor and council member comments, and I'll start with you, Mr. Betts.
Thank you. You know, the challenges for a small city are, you know, trying to control the speeding, and people are acting, you know, driving the way they shouldn't be driving, and it's just terrible to see this tragedy that happened with the resident that spoke here in public comment today. The reality is we have a police department that's doing a great job in everything they need to do, you know, on the core issues, but we've got to do something to control this traffic, and so I know that the PD's working on it as best they can, but we might need to do something more as a council to try and address that. And if it's budgeting for speed humps, which we all know have worked very well, I know Palm Springs and other places have them. I think there's things we can do to help complement the effort of our police department. And I tell you, the stuff that really counts, you guys are doing a great job, but man, when you see a tragedy like that, it just, you know, let's get out the checkbook and let's get a speed hump there and see if we can prevent this from happening some more. You know, with great fanfare, we put out some signs that notified people of a $10,000 fine for dumping. And we had a resident who took note of that sign and then said, hey, you may have one for you. And she was in contact with, I saw her post originally on social media, and then I reached out to her, and sure enough, she had elaborate, very detailed photographs of somebody dumping, and had their phone number and everything else on the side of their truck. So I took it upon myself to call him and say, you're caught, buddy, and there's a $10,000 fine in this city. I would strongly suggest you go out there and clean up the mess. And I thought I was going to be able to report that he was going to do it, that he'd already done it, because he promised me he was going to do it on Saturday. So I just called him just now before the meeting, because I found out that they hadn't gotten to it. And I told him that, you know, we take this very seriously, and apparently you decided you want to go make money on Saturday instead of, you know, cleaning up the mess you left behind. So I don't know how much longer we can keep the wolves at bay. In your case, you better go take care of that. So I told him, if the guy doesn't have this thing cleaned up, tomorrow, like you promised to be done, then we may have our first candidate for that $10,000 fine. Public's got to know that this council's taking that seriously, and that we're working on it. We may need to do some other things. Let's talk to the city manager about post and cable or boulders or something, some type of program like that, and I think we're going to probably see some progress along that way. So, but anyhow, I think the council's going in a good direction, addressing this and understanding this issue. And I know, Mr. Gardner, you championed those signs and getting that moving, and so just want to let you know that that was a nice tool that's very effective when you shake somebody to the core when they find out they're facing that kind of a fine. I want to put a call out to everybody. I've seen on the city's notices going out, I don't know if we have it on the city main page yet, but Citizens on Patrol. We're getting a lot of people calling, asking. They must be seeing the notices, and I'm just directing them to City Hall. Hopefully you're getting those calls. A lot of people want to volunteer. Very interested. It's a great organization. Very exciting work, the group that you can be a part of, where you're really making a big difference in the community. You take a look at how other cities have employed have engaged with the Citizens on Patrol and neighborhood patrols and cruising the shopping centers and all kinds of stuff that Palm Desert's very, very active. So anyhow, if please reach out to the city phone number or city webpage, and do we have that link on the page now to something prominent where people can sign up for Citizens on Patrol?
I don't know every single page on our website, but I know that we have contact information
Well,
for
when I'm
all of our
interested in the main
departments.
page, I'm interested in the main page, so a blurb. But if we can get something on there, it'd be great. Anyhow, whatever you're doing is getting out there. If we can do more, that'd be great. As the price of gasoline goes up, so does the amount of money that government takes in. Everyone pays more at the pump, and state and local government collects more money because we're getting a percentage of a higher price. I don't know what we can do, but I'm thinking with the price of gas in California being so high, we're up, $6 a gallon now. It's just outrageous. It really hurts people. This council should take a look at seeing what we can do to figure out a way to rebate either through vouchers or something for gas purchased in our city. I think the city manager will be getting the numbers on how much more this is going to add, but it's not a small amount of money that's coming in. For example, if we're collecting 1 cent at $1 a gallon, we're collecting 6 cents at $6 a gallon, and it just goes up exponentially. As the price goes up, we get more. I don't think we should be contributing as a city in our tax revenue. We're doing okay right now, and I think we need to come up with some type of a voucher program to refund to our residents at the pump. I know that may be a complicated matter, but it's something we need to look at. I don't think we should be profiting off of this present gasoline crisis. It's really impacting people terribly. We have the Coachella weekend coming up, and we've had discussion here on vacation rentals. I would encourage city staff to take care of these patrols during the Coachella weekend. Whether you think vacation rentals are a great thing or not, they're not great if they're a big raging party next door. We know we have the most active vacation rental time coming up with Coachella, so I would like to encourage staff to do what they can to increase the patrols somehow, bring in extra resources, whatever you can, at this, for this weekend that's coming up for Coachella. It's really nice to see Donna Lozano be awarded be recognized for the Senior Inspiration Gala, and it's really nice to see our city so well represented down there. I wasn't able to attend, but she's just really been a wonderful person here in the city. And of course, at the Big Heart Awards, to see Roberta, who's not here. Good. Did she get a night off finally? Huh?
Roberta was not able to make this meeting. She's ill.
Okay, well, I'm sorry she's ill, but I'm happy that she's got some time off. So it was nice to see her get it awarded. My meetings at Sunline, attended last week, whenever that was, I attended, and the Teamsters got their contract. We signed with that labor group, and now there's one more that we're bargaining unit that we're working on that we expect to have that resolved, and hopefully Sunline will be getting back to normal transit times. It's not related to the negotiations with the unions. It's just that it's two separate items there, and I'm tired, sorry. Had a nice meet and greet at Cabot's. If you have a chance to get out there, please go see that. And we had a great opening day at the Little League. It was really nice to see all those kids and everything going on there. And again, city stepped up and making that program work. And so it was really good there. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the mayor, or I guess I should say the mayor's employer, for making him work during the Little League opening day, because that meant I got to do it. And I got to welcome the kids, kick off the season, and if you weren't there, it was a glorious Saturday morning, perfect for baseball, and it was, as Mr. Betts said, so fun to see 30-plus teams take the field, especially those first-time little T-ballers who are, about that long. And it was fun. I got to high-five just about every kid as they walked the base and wish them all good luck. Roberta Cernick, who unfortunately is ill tonight, managed to pull it off. I don't know how she did it, but she did, and thanks to her and to Royal Emerald Pharmaceuticals, who picked up the entire tab so that every kid who wanted to play could be covered for the cost of Little League and the cost of their uniforms. I honestly scratched my brain, talked to everybody. I don't know another city where every little kid that wanted to play gets to play. And we have a wonderful benefactor in Royal Emerald who helped to do that up. So we're going to have a great Little League season ahead, and the mayor and his wife are coaching the Dodgerettes. It was a little tough for me being in a Mariners journey there with all of these Dodgers blue around, but I still managed to get out of there with my life. Like my colleagues who joined me at the events, I wanted to congratulate Donna Lozano, our Senior Inspiration Award winner this year, and Roberta Cernick, who was given the Rotary Club Big Heart Award as City Employee of the Year. Chris James from the PD was awarded the Police Department Employee of the Year, and Arturo Villarreal as the Fire Department Employee of the Year. So thanks to them and to the good folks at Rotary who put this on every year. It's a great way to recognize a lot of really special people who make Desert Hot Springs such a wonderful place. As far as outside meetings go, I only had one. I attended the Visit Greater Palm Springs JPA Executive Committee meeting. We used to call this the Convention Visitors Bureau, but that was too short. So now we call it the Visit Greater Palm Springs JPA Executive Committee. We just finished an economic analysis of the how much of an impact the cannabis industry has on tourism here in the valley, and the preliminary data is still kind of rough. I'm waiting for the final numbers. $265 million valley-wide can be attributed to visitor and resident spending on cannabis activity. 148 million of that is visitors. So visitors are dropping a lot of money in our cannabis industry here. That is a very significant impact. JPA also continues to focus on getting the College of the Desert to not abandon its tourism and hospitality program, which is key to the future sustainability of the Valley's largest economic engine. So we're hopeful that that will continue as well. And as Mr. Betts pointed out, the Visit Greater Palm Springs JPA Executive Committee hosted a meet and greet up at Cabot's. We had about 150 people from all over the Valley come up there on an absolutely beautiful, perfect desert evening. Got to see Cabot's at sunset, which is wonderful, and they all got a great impression of the city and came away with a lot of great comments on that. That's all I've got.
Mr. Nunez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I wanted to start off by honoring a birthday that just passed for our founder for the UFW, Cesar Chavez, on March 31st. I just want to honor him like that and his family. It's a great pleasure to be a part of any events that Cesar Chavez represents. So I wanted to start off like that. Saturday, the 2nd of April, I had an expungement clinic for residents that wanted to clean up the record at the criminal record at the library. We had a pretty good turnout, and it has showed that there is an interest here in for residents that do want to clean up the record and start a different path and direction. So I'm hoping to have more clinics and hoping to get the city and council support on that when we do have them. I want to thank Maricela Torasco for coming out and speaking tonight. My son is a classmate of your son, so kind of, put things in perspective for me, for my son, because he was like, no way, you know. So just want to say it's a real tragedy, and no parent should have to go through that. So I'm with you. I do agree that I think staff and council should come up together and meet and see how we can start a plan, if not one already, about a program, how to put speed humps, where to put them, a time frame. So I'm hoping we can sit down and go over that in the near future. I was approached by some residents Saturday at the clinic about some vagrants or in homelessness in near and on the Vaughn's shopping center. And there was some concerns that they were harassing shoppers and whatnot. So I'm hoping that we can see what efforts are we putting together. I know we've talked about this before in the past. So I just wanted to give a heads up that they're, we're moving and shaking with them, and now they're interrupting shoppers. So I want to thank staff and Luke for opening up the council chambers for the Mexican consulate. That was here the last week of March. It's overwhelming to see our building being used for services, to help residents with, the process of birth certificates and matriculas and whatnot. So I want to thank you and staff for that. So I think it's a great opportunity. I can't wait. I want to be a part of the next one. So I hope I can be invited to that one. I did attend a CVEP meeting last month, and it was brought up that they want to go into live meetings once again, because most of the meetings for the last couple of years have been on Zoom. Needless to say, they did approach us as the city to host either the next meeting or the next month meeting. So I'm hoping that we can collaborate with them to see what we can do, make arrangements for him to have everybody from CVEP here and view our beautiful building. And let me see, what else do we have? I want to thank you, Nick, for putting that presentation for the parks. I know I asked for it last month, and you're pretty good at doing that. I want to see the LED lights that were there before. Is there a big comparison to how much brightness they're putting out now, or is it pretty much the same?
I can get you that answer.
Okay, no problem. And then lastly, Donna, I just wanted to say thank you for all you guys do and all the fundraising. I was approached by the Desert Hot Springs High School cheerleaders. I guess they're doing a fundraiser. I guess there's a trip coming up, and they wanted me to help in some way. So I donated my popcorn machine and popcorn and whatnot, and they're hoping to see if they can get support from the city residents and whoever to help with their collaboration with the field trip. So if there's anything that we can do together, I'd be more happy to work with you. So, and that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pai?
I guess we'll stay with Donna. She talked about the Palletiers, and she did not say that she won place and show. Also on the 28th, the high school had a school fashion show, and it was the fashion show and also teachers. And they're asking, the fashion show kids are asking for donations for the prom. So all you have to do is give it to the front desk, and they say they have enough shoes, so they just need clothing. And I brought some of the clothing to them from the Desert Rose from the senior center. Also, for the Desert Hot Springs Women's Club, on May 3rd, the mayor will be giving a State of the Union. And on another vein, you don't have to watch television to find out about what's happening in Desert Hot Springs. If you go to the website and drill down and click on subscribe, you will get all of the meetings, this council meeting, special council meetings, planning commission, and also public safety. And press releases. I don't do Facebook, but you can do Facebook also. But if you go down to subscribe, then it automatically will come to your email address, and you'll get the information ahead of time. You can either look just at the agenda, or you can look at the agenda for everything that we get. You may not want to read 300 and some pages, but it's there. Mr. Mayor, I'm done.
Thank you to my council. I'll try to be quick on my report tonight. I met with quite a few local groups and developers over the last few weeks. We had an extra week off, I think, during this last 3 weeks, so it seemed like a lot packed in. I think most of the council attended the Air Museum Gala. We are to report out if we use city funds to do that, and how the city works that is that we pay for a table at the gala, and then the Air Museum gives us flyovers during our events such as Memorial or Veterans Day. So it's kind of a trade-off, and it's a really cool one. We were actually, the council that did attend was able to see the stealth fighter before it really was unveiled to the public. So it was one of the cool events that we get to go to each year. A Little League opening day, again, that's one of the first I've missed in a long time, had to work. And I want to thank the Mayor Pro Tem for stepping in, the council members that did attend. This is one of the highlights that I like to see in our community each year, especially with our kids. And this year, since COVID's really brought the numbers down in Little League, and before COVID it was kind of fading a little bit, but after COVID now, 400, and I think last Roberta told me it was 435 kids involved, and they've actually have kids on a waiting list because we don't have enough fields right now to play all the kids. So it is youth sports, as Mr. Nunez knows, because he supports AYSO and coaches down there, and you can just, it's exploding again. Kids can get out and spend time. Which brings me to my comments, and again, so sorry for your tragedy that's going on in your life right now. And our city's been very proactive in a lot of measures to help transportation. As I sit on transportation commissions and committees for the Coachella Valley and Riverside County, we'll definitely work with our staff. They've been very proactive in the past on these types of issues to try to work with you in your community, and we will reach out to you and we will find solutions for you. As you can see, I think you got full support up here from the council. I did attend the Riverside County Transportation Commission Budget and Implementation meeting, but nothing pertained directly to Desert Hot Springs, so I'm not going to bore you with the details on that. I did speak at the Women's Council of Realtors. Once a year, they invite all the mayors. I think 7 mayors showed up to give presentations, and we each get about 15 to 20 minutes, so it's kind of a long morning. And of course, I was second to last, so I got to listen to a lot of the mayors give their presentations, which was kind of cool because you get to hear a lot of little things going on within different communities. Even though we're 9 different cities here in the Coachella Valley, we work a lot together in different regions and stuff, so it's really cool to hear things that are going on. So always a nice event. And then the 2022 Senior Inspiration for this year was Donna Lozano. She's a longtime friend of my family. She's been very active in our community. She lost her child to gun violence, to a gang member shooting here in this community in the 90s, and she's been an advocate to help parents through those things since then. She also is a public safety commissioner for our city, and I thought she really deserved this. Her mother was one of the ones that started Little League here in Desert Hot Springs in 1972. Maria Richardson's field at Ormond Park is named after her, and her whole family's really been instrumental in a lot of things in Desert Hot Springs. So I was really happy to award her this year the Senior Inspiration Award, and she ended up on the front page of the Desert Sun. We'll come to find out they don't print on Saturdays. So it was a digital Desert Sun, but it was really an honor, and I will have her, and I'm also going to bring in the honoree from 2020, 2021. They had combined those 2 years, Courtney Moe, and I'm going to bring them in and give that little presentation of the videos that they have and honor them. Courtney Moe wasn't able to have an actual event because of COVID, and so the award was all virtual, but I'd like to bring both of them in the near future. This city clerk's going to work on that for us so we can see their videos and give them a little kudos for what they've done for our communities. Big Heart Awards, Rotary here the Rotary Club here in Desert Hot Springs does a fantastic job, along with the Women's Club and the Elks, and we've got a lot of great organizations in this community that give back. And I mean, the Women's Club every year, it seems like they give more and more money. They work harder and harder. And one of the events that the Rotary has started recently in the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, is the Big Heart Awards. And this was something that was really close to me. And when they first put it on, I asked as the mayor, I said, instead of doing multiple events, because all the mayors in the past seem to have some sort of event attached to a chamber or their own event, and they would give out awards, and I just thought it was nice to have a slot within what they were doing for the community. And so I asked to do that 5 years ago, and they've allowed me throughout the years to give an award at the end of their presentations. So they give awards to Teachers of the Year for elementary, middle school, and high school, Principal of the Year, to all our public safety, fire, and police, and then they give a city employee, which was Roberta Cernick this year, well deserved, and then there's a couple of categories. There's volunteers of the year, big business of the year, small business of the year. So they really go and honor and have this really nice event, and then they give the Mayor Choice Award. And this year, I awarded the Mayor's Choice Award to James Bradley, and that name's not going to be very familiar to anybody. It wasn't even familiar to me until I pointed at the guy and said, I want to give him my award. He is a crossing guard at the corner of West Drive and Jalisco, Avenue Jalisco, right before you turn there to go to the elementary and the middle school up at the top of town. And I tell the story that when my wife and I lived on the other side of town, we would travel over there to drop our kids off when they were in elementary and middle school. And now we own a home on the other side of that school. But not too long ago, when I was trying to figure out this award, I turned down that street and there was a ton of traffic. And I went, the schools are letting out, darn it. And you get in this bad mood because you're stuck in this traffic and everybody's trying to pick up their kids. And I got to the end of the block and he's standing there. And James Bradley will stand there. He's a big presence of a man. And you could be very intimidated by him, but he turns, he smiles, and he waves at every car and every person, and he actually will get down and wave just to make sure you see him waving, and he puts a smile on your face. So he was my Mayor's Choice Award for the Big Heart this year. Unfortunately, he had a death in the family, wasn't able to make it, but we have the awards. We're going to get him to him, and hopefully maybe we can invite him to the City Council and give him that award, because I think he's well deserved this year, and it's very inspirational to me coming out of COVID to have someone like that awarded. So that was my Big Heart Award this year. I helped support an organization that put on a drone class, and they used our gymnasium here in Desert Hot Springs at the Health and Wellness Center. If you don't know where the rec center is and the pool is, there's a full gymnasium with basketball courts in there. And what's happening now in the tech industry is there's in film and in utilities and other companies, realtors, they're looking for people that are licensed to fly drones. There's actually an FAA program. Is it FFA? Too many acronyms in my life. And it's a program that you actually get licensed for that, and to be able to go out, and this helps you get a job, and it's a training. And so they scholarshiped, I believe 5 or 6 of our kids out of our PSA Academy. The class was $3.99. There was people that came from all the way from San Diego all the way up here to take this class, and we brought in one of the top instructors in the country. He's out of LA, met him through a friend that has a nonprofit. They put on the first class, and it was very successful. As they were to run down at the end of the day, which ended about 3 o'clock on Saturday. It was about a 6-hour class. And at the end of the class, for $399, which is about an $1,800 value, you get your license, or if you're underage, you get a student license, and then you get a free drone at the end of the class. So it's kind of cool. They want to now do this again, and the gymnasium is perfect because of our therapeutic breezes and other places that have therapeutic breezes. It's always hard to find that place that's not going to be windy on that exact day, those 6 hours. So being inside the gym, it was easy to fly and easy to train, and these kids were very thankful that they were able to do this. So I wanted to continue this moving along. I'm hoping that maybe the city can support this, because I think it's an avenue where a lot of people in our industries and looking for jobs are saying, well, that job I can't do anymore because it's been taken away. But there's maybe 2 other jobs that come about with different technology, and this is one of those. So I think it's kind of cool. Good job. Yeah, thank you. I have been really focused on the downtown area, and especially between Cactus and West. helping some business owners down there. Our staff's been coming up with planning for down there, and I think it's time that the city really puts together a steering committee. So I've asked about 10 residents, business owners from down there. 10 residents have been involved in our community for a while, planning commission and hoteliers, and I'm bringing this group of people together. I've asked Councilmember Pye to sit on this committee with me, and we're going to kind of bring just a kind of steer the direction of where we want to see the city go, and then present it to the city council, and then work with staff on really getting our downtown to become something. We kind of had this huge plan years ago when I first joined the council in 2007. It was just too big. It was too much to obtain. We were going to use redevelopment. Redevelopment ended up going away. This is really a small section to start with. We can expand it in time, but I think the vision's there. Finances are better. I think we have the business owners starting to open up businesses that are going to pop down there, and I think there's opportunities. So I've sent out some emails. We'll be having some meetings, and we'll report back to the city council as that happens. And then a lot of you weren't here, and some of you watching weren't here during the presentations, but our senior center this Saturday is having a fundraiser. It's a car show, lots of fun. I believe it starts at 9 and it goes to 3, or is it 10 to 3?
11.
Starts at 11, sorry. Whew, don't get there at 9. Starts at 11 and goes till 3. Some of our council members will be there giving or being judges in the car show, and then I'm going to pop in and give an award at the end there. We've got I know this time of season is really, really busy for everybody, but if you have time, stop by, support our seniors. They're having all kinds of, they're doing fundraising so they can do all kinds of things for the seniors in our community. With that, that's all I have right now. We're going to move to our next item, which is public hearings, and that's item number 2 on our agenda. This is the transition from at-large to by-district elections. This is public hearing number 4. I do want to make a statement up front. I know there's some people that have come in at the end here of our process before the city clerk gives his full report. The council's been forced into this position, and I think the council has made it very clear in the last few public hearings and meetings that we're not happy with the process, but we unfortunately have to go through this process so that the city is not sued. And so I'm going to turn it over to the city clerk at this point, and then we'll get back to public comments and the city council's decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is the final public hearing for this process. So on November 1st, 2021, the city received a letter from an attorney asserting that the city's at-large election system may violate the California Voting Rights Act and threatening litigation if the city does not voluntarily transition to a district-based election system for electing its city council. On December 8, 2021, the City Council adopted a resolution declaring its intent to transition from at-large to by-district elections, establishing the city's compliance with the Elections Code, step-by-step process for the transition, which also requires significant public participation. City was required to hold 4 public hearings. Like I said, this evening is the final public hearing. On February 15th, 2022 and March 1st, 2022, the City Council held the first 2 required public hearings to inform the public about the districting processes and to hear from the community on what factors should be considered while creating district boundaries. At those hearings, the city received a presentation from staff and its demographer regarding the legal requirements to be considered, the criteria for creating boundaries, and the public input process. Third public hearing was held on March 15th, 2022. In addition to the required public hearings, the city also contracted with consultants and held public workshops to provide more opportunities to inform the public. Members of the public were invited to attend here at City Hall or virtually via the Zoom platform, and those workshops were held on February 17th at 6 p.m., February 24th at noon, March 9th at 6 p.m., and then lastly on March 23rd, a 4th workshop was held at the Desert Hot Springs Senior Center. On March 8th, the demographer provided 3 draft map options for consideration in compliance with the California Fair Maps Act. District boundaries were drawn using criteria that was required. As required by law, the draft maps were made available on the city's website on March 8, 2022, at least 7 days prior to the March 15th public hearing. Then on March 14, 2022, the demographer provided draft maps 1.1 and 3.1 based on public input received at the time. The city has received public input on this process. To date, my office has received public input from the following individuals: Rakita Grant, Maribel Nunez, Gary Gardner, Victoria Doyle, Melvin Noklaby, Janet Burnaby, Kent Anderson, Maribel Nunez, Robert Griffith, and then also Maribel Nunez once again. These submissions are in the agenda packet and can also be viewed on the website. So with all that being said, the purpose of tonight's public hearing is to offer the community and the City Council a final opportunity to comment, select a final map, and introduce for first reading an ordinance of the City Council establishing a by-district election process pursuant to the California Elections Code, Section 10010, and adding new sections, Chapter 2.04 of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code to provide for City Council election districts. That concludes my staff report. We also have David Eli, our demographer, and Hobe Huerta, our outreach consultant, available for any questions. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start on Zoom first, then we'll go to the in-person body. Anyone on Zoom that would like to speak to this matter?
We have Maribel Nunez.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a public hearing. Sorry. Hold on one second. We have the staff report, and then we need to entertain questions from staff, from City Council first. Is there anybody at the City Council would like to ask a question to staff before I open up a public hearing?
I have a question. I know the answer, but I want it out because I'm not happy. I wanted to, in our resolution 20.1, it doesn't matter, I wanted to put that anyone for registering the vote would be able to have anyone that is a registered voter sign in on the certificate. But we can't do that. My reason was the district bothers me because that's going to put us against each other. And I felt that if at least people through the certificate for running were able to quasi-participate, then they could be saying, I want this person because I know they will be fair to the rest of us. So, go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Unfortunately, there is a government code section 34883 that specifically requires that persons who signing nomination petitions for voting a member of the legislative body shall be residents of the geographical location making up the district from which the member is to be elected. So there is a very specific statute on point, but I do understand Councilmember's dismay.
So to put it in a little more lay terms, when you decide to run for City Council, you have to get 20 signatures, and they must be qualified voters within the community. Now those signatures will only be allowed within the district that you're running in, and currently all the maps are supporting a mayor at large and 4 districts with a possible map with 2 districts that will be discussed tonight. But what the city attorney is saying in attorney talk is that unfortunately, Ms. Pai's request is denied by the state law, and state law over trumps any of our ordinances. So you would not be able to get your signatures outside. When you do get signatures, if you ever choose to run for City Council, they would be checked within your district. Does that satisfy? I know it doesn't satisfy you, but does that satisfy the answer you were looking for?
No, but I'm done.
And then I asked a question too, so we might as well get that out there. I had asked if, since there's 3 districts, if for some reason a council member decided to announce tonight that they were not running for one of those districts, there will be a district that's not represented in this election. There's just no way around that. No matter which map you look at, there will be a district that's not represented, most likely, unless you went to the 2 districting, which had two council members in each district. And so I'd ask a question, if there's 3 districts open and only 2, and there's 2 council members and 1 council member decided to say, I'm not going to run for sure here, pick one of these other districts, would that be an option? And the answer was
Is it to actually choose the district? Is that the question?
yes.
The answer is yes. Elections code does allow for the choosing of which districts would be up for this round.
But I didn't want to push that, not knowing if Ms. Pye or Mr. Gardner would not announce tonight that they're not running. Neither one, I don't think, has stepped up to say anything like that, so I think we need to take that into consideration tonight when we vote on these districts. Any other questions for staff? Sure.
So following on that one, if there was no candidate in, say, for example, District 3 or 4, then perhaps, is it possible for those candidates to run in both of those districts, and then whoever gets the most votes would be the district that is selected, and then the next one would come up subsequently?
I think we asked that question to the demographer last time.
Well,
He can probably give you a better
I'm not
answer.
sure I'm clear on what I'm saying, but
I get what you're saying.
somebody could run in both districts. Whoever wins, that's the district that is
You could
represented.
run all 3 districts that are open, is what you're saying, and then the top 2 get.
Well, at least the 2, that whatever, so however it works, yeah. But anyhow, that may be too complicated. This may be easier than that. And the other question I have is now, the way this is going to work is, so somebody runs, they get elected in that district, they can't move out of that district to another part of the city, correct? They have to stay in that district, or it's the same as if one of us presently moved out of the city.
That's correct. You have to reside in that district.
So if we picked up and moved to Arizona or something, then obviously then we're not going to be, we have to have a residence, actual residence in
the
that district?
Correct.
How is that residence determined? Is it by your primary voting?
Well, it's normally by domicile. It's wherever it is that you return to and call your home.
Is there any limit on how many days you could, I mean, can you just be there one day, one night? Or do you have to be there a certain percentage of days and nights?
So I haven't researched in terms of how long you need to specifically reside in that district prior to being able to run, but I can go ahead and do so.
Okay, and then not only how long, because there's going to be people maybe moving into these districts. That's a good question that people are going to ask. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's new in this process now. So how long do you have to reside in that district before you're eligible to run in that district? And once you're elected in that district, obviously you cannot move out of that district, correct?
Correct.
But let's say somebody says they have a bed that they slept at one night. Does that qualify? I guess what I'd like to see is what specifically qualifies, again, a little off subject here, but what specifically qualifies somebody to be legal representative in that district and have not forfeited their seat?
Well, it would be the same thing that qualifies a council member currently. It's obviously you need to be a resident of the city, so it's the same kind of qualification. So meaning that if you're a resident in the city, you have a home, some kind of living in the city, you intend to return back to the city, that it would be similar.
Okay,
But again, I'll
I
look
could
this
move to
up.
Arizona and then go to my neighbor and say, hey, can I pretend like I'm sleeping in your house and renting a room from you? Right? So I think we need to clarify that. Anyhow, that's it. It's kind of a little off subject.
Gary
Sorry.
and I were kind of talking about.
I was going to kind of clarify that a little bit with our city attorney and you. I believe our current city code says you have to be a registered voter in the district. So that qualification would not be removed. Under this, you would have to be a registered voter of the district of which you are residing. So that gives you one evidence of how, you can't just say I slept here one night and I'm ready. You have to prove that it is your residence, your primary residence by a driver's license and a voting registration card, if I recall correct. So that might take care of it, but what we don't have, and you're correct, is a time limit, and I've asked the city attorney the same question. So what I'm hoping is that we get the answers for that, and if we have to make some corrections in our election code, which is slightly separate from where this is, we'll probably do that, I would imagine, as a package once the council gets a chance to look at that and debate it.
In the present system, that large, I don't see it's a big deal. I pick up and move. We've had council members have moved around the city and it hasn't been a big deal. But this is considerably more prone to, if somebody sells their house and moves, they want to stay in the city, and your purchase options are considerably limited. And it wouldn't be the first time somebody has that we've heard in this world that somebody has gamed the system saying they live there when they really don't.
Well, I mean, not to get into too much political history, but back when I started in 2007, there was an elected official not in this city, but he traveled around the county and would plop down a residence because him and his wife had quite a bit of money and they could buy homes in certain areas just to run for office. So I guess that is a concern and a valid concern that we need to look into and see if there's, I know I live the HOA laws, that's my real job, and in HOA laws, or HOA worlds, they put in their election codes that you must, a lot of them do, I shouldn't say all of them, but most of mine do, is they put in there that you have to be a resident for a year before you can run for the board of directors. So is that a possibility that we could put a time limit to move into an area or a district that you would have to be registered as a voter to live in that district and show that you have some continuity, I think is what the council's getting at. With that, I'm going to open it up to the public comments, and then we'll get back to council debate, if that's okay with everybody. Everybody's good? All right, we'll open the public hearing at this time. We'll go to Zoom first. And Maribella, I'm sorry I cut you off because I skipped a point there, but you're going to be first up. I see your hand up, and we'll get you up on the screen. If you want to unmute yourself, you're first to speak.
Can you all hear me?
We can.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. My name is Maribel Nunez. I work with Inland Equity Partnership and part of the Brown and Black Redistricting Alliance. We have residents that we work with in the city of Desert Hot Springs. Thank you so much for your time. And I wanted to, I know we had initially proposed 2 districts, but I guess the city manager came back that we couldn't. So the other map that we were looking into, what's proposed, is draft map 1. And this map is a Voting Rights Act compliant map that, and also best aligns with our communities of interest. We survey dozens of residents, what they would like to see, since we're changing from at-large districts. In draft map 1, particularly District 1 is a majority district. Latino is the only, or Hispanic is the only of citizen voting age population that has a 50 plus. So it does have Latino CVAP 54.8%. based on what you all have on your 2019 CVAP data that you're using. So yeah, so basically we support this map. Like I said, it does provide other minority leaning districts, but it definitely complies with the Voting Rights Act, District 1. And like I said, I think that we had emailed a little bit about our communities of interest. And I believe we do have some residents. I know that Ms. Maria Manriquez had to work. And so she had to step away. And so she is also in support. And she was part of our coalition supporting the 2 districts and draft map 1, but she had to hop off from work, since her apologies. And yeah, so I think some folks might have a little bit more to share if we have some residents that are there, but thank you so much for your time. And we do ask, draft map 1 is the one that I think best aligns with our communities of interest. And it does have a Voting Rights Act district. I'm not sure, I don't think the other maps have that. So we do need to make sure when you look at the citizen voting age population, there needs to be at least one district that has a Voting Rights Act based on the Latino CVAP that we see. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, anyone on Zoom going to speak to this item?
No, that's it.
Okay. We'll go to public comments here. And I know, Joe, you put in a card. Since you put in a card, you get to go first. Mr. Moda.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Joe Mota. I live in Desert Hot Springs, and I have been working also with the Black and Brown Alliance. We did work together to put the 2-district map, and I guess we were informed that it didn't doesn't fulfill the requirements. But I just wanted to say that I am also in agreement that we support map draft 1. That it fulfills all the voting rights, and we wanted to see and share that with you all, that working together with other community members, that's the best map that best works for us. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight and giving your opinion. Anyone else like to speak to this? Just come forward. Kent, the mic's all yours.
Hi, my name is Kent Anderson. I live in Desert Hot Springs. I'm with the council, and I like the way that we were doing elections, but if we are going to move to district, which obviously we are, I like 1.1. I think it follows the natural boundaries of Pearson and Palm, and I think it works out better for anybody who is actually running for council. It makes a very good distinct area that you know where you're walking or running for office in. It keeps neighborhoods together. Map 1 actually takes my neighborhood and throws it in with Skyborn. I have nothing to do with Skyborn, nothing against them, but I have nothing to do with them, so I like map 1.1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who else would like to speak to this item? Brian, come on up.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say I'm with Mr. Anderson. I like 1, but 1.1's better because, I mean, Mr. Anderson's a neighbor where I'm at, and to cut 1 point off, he wouldn't even be the neighbor anymore. So it only makes sense to go from Pearson to Hacienda, and so that's, I'd like to, place my vote. I'd like to see you guys go that route. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, Donna, you had some comments, didn't you, on this one?
Thank you. I don't have a lot of positive things to say, but I'm going to say them anyway because I'm a bold woman. I understand we've heard a lot about money tonight, and money's really important. And I understand that because of the cost to fight it, our lovely little town is being forced apart into districts, and in my mind, it's somewhat like communistic pieces of our town. Over the years, we, the community members, have fought so hard to grow and to build this town into the lovely, cohesive city that it is today. We, the voters, have made good choices for our mayors, city council members, government that is so strong and once again cohesive. With Desert Hot Springs as a whole, your passion. The Desert Hot Springs became a shining an example of possibility rather than a laughingstock that we were at one time. For that, I'm incredibly appreciative. So unfortunately, because we can't afford to fight it, we, Desert Hot Springs, the spa city, the shining city on the hill, will just become another square in a checkerboard of districts, each voting for their own few streets instead of this fine city that we all know and support and love. I also am have the understanding, especially what I've heard this tonight, of a term I had not heard before, that the districting is a checkerboard to fight race. I heard brown and black. I am an 80-year-old white female. I see it as creating race rather than dividing lines, creating dividing lines rather than doing away with them. Having race differences forced upon us by districting is not a good thing. I understand they have the money, but this race thing has to stop. I say spend the money. We're a pretty rich little town. We're getting better. Spend the money and fight the district and save Desert Hot Springs for the town that it is. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make any comments? Last call. I will close the public hearing at this time. We're going to go to city council discussion and answer any questions. I'll start. It's been a tough process since we received the initial letter of threat of litigation to the city of Desert Hot Springs. I truly believe that the city is very diverse, and that it is very hard to draw lines in this community because of the way the community is made up. And I take pride in that, and I take pride in the fact that we represent all. And unfortunately, we have groups out there that decide that they're going to sue cities based on their population, and that's just what it comes down to. We did our due diligence to see if we were polarized, and we were to a certain extent, and to fight this would possibly put the city into hundreds of thousands of dollars and who knows where in the future. So we're forced into this. The one thing that I do see positive out of this is that the mayor will stay at large, according to these maps, if that's what we choose tonight. You will have 4 council members, but each council member will still represent the city in whole. I don't think there's a council member up here that will say that they won't represent across those lines. They will have to campaign within those lines. But there will be a district open, and as the mayor being at large, I will most likely, do everything I can to help represent that district. I'm sure all the other council members will step up to help represent that district also. So there won't be, even though there will be a district open this year with no representation on paper, we'll still all be there for that district. And as the mayor, I think that's the mayor's job, whether it's me or anybody in the future, as the at-large person on the council to represent a district if it's ever vacated for any reason. I definitely will support MAP 1.1. MAP 1 is good. It just, as Mr. Anderson and Mr. Muse said, it cut off their neighborhood, and the reason for, one of the criteria in our process is to make sure that neighborhoods stay together. And you can't just take a little neighborhood out of here, neighborhood out of that. And after that public hearing, the demographer went back and fixed that a little bit, and it shuffled a few people here and a few people there. And for the most part, the map actually, I think, became stronger at 1.1. So I'm actually, I know there's going to be some more discussion tonight. I'll see if I get a second, but I'm going to ask tonight that I'm going to make a motion to support map 1.1.
I'll second that.
We do have a motion and a second on the table, and now we'll go back into public comment, or back into this council comment. We'll start down this end? Nothing? No comments? Okay. Mr. Nunez, any comments?
Yeah, I just have a comment. Realistically, I mean, this is a difficult process. I still truly believe that it's too soon. We're really moving really fast. I don't think we're giving the residents a full in-depth analysis of all the voting, of all the statistics. I just really hate to have to make a decision tonight. I feel like I'm being forced to. But if I'm looking at a map tonight, it would have to be one. Because of the voting rights, I want to stay consistent of that and make sure that every resident is represented when it comes to voting. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Can you elaborate, since we are in debate, can you elaborate on how this process could go slower when the law is very specific on a time frame? How would we get around the law?
That's an answer I can't give you. I just whatever.
I'm open to any comment.
Right,
I'm open to any suggestions.
I'm also anything that we could do to slow down the process, to extend the process. I'm all ears. I think at the end of the day, that's the conversation we should be having: is how do we slow this down? How do we put our brains together as leaders of the city to really put a stop or the brakes, I should say, and really do this right and not just jump into it.
And then I also have a question for you during the debate here. On map 1 and 1.1, the demographics are almost exactly alike. In map 1, just for example, in District 1, you have a Latino population of 77%, and in map 1.1, 72%. A white population of 12% and a white population of 17%. I mean, they're literally off by 1 or 2%. In each district. The only difference is that it coordinates neighborhoods to be more contiguous, as stated by Mr. Anderson, Mr. Muse. What would be your argument against that?
Really, they're not going to lose a neighbor. You're not going to lose your neighbor. He's always going to be your neighbor. He's always going to be there. The only thing is you're going to be in different districts. You're going to be voting for different people. As far as the Latino voter turnout, that's the key number. That's the statistics we need to be looking at. It's the turnout of the vote, not just how many people are in that district, how many Latinos vote versus how many whites vote. That's the difference.
So is that a factor in when you're putting together this information, or maybe that's a question for the consultants? Is it a factor on who votes or just the actual number in that? David?
I will attempt to answer that. Looking at who votes is an important part of the legal analysis that goes on behind all of this. In order to comply with the Voting Rights Act, we need to have one district in which the Latino community has an equal opportunity to elect their candidates of choice. And in order to bring litigation over that, they need to show that you can have a 50% district. Obviously, we can have a 50% district in terms of citizen voting age population, and that's what one is. In all of these districts, the Spanish surname share of registration is actually higher than the citizen voting age number, and the Spanish surname portion of turnout is also higher than citizen voting age. And so in all of the options that we have, according to my analysis, Latinos make up more than 50% of the turnout from the 2020 election in District 1.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, we get back to that. Mr. Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I seconded the motion for 1.1. I believe 1.1 is the better of the alternate maps. 3.1 is good too, and is very balanced. I echo the concerns raised by Ms. Wardeen, and looking at the comments made by Mr. Anderson and Mr. Muse, if you look at map 1, the demographers, when they originally created map 1, admitted, and that was why we had the public hearings, so they didn't know neighborhoods. They did not know what neighborhood was which. And they just did it to balance as a first draft, which is what we wanted to do. They came up with a first draft that equally balanced the population, which they did a very good job of. If you look at map 1, the population is 8137, 8102, 8147, 8126. So it's as close as you can possibly get. But it ignored neighborhoods. For instance, in map 1, it runs down the middle of Acoma, which is a small street with only 5 houses on it, and you're putting those 5 houses in a district way across when they're sharing a neighborhood with their people across the street. As was pointed out by Mr. Anderson and Mr. Muse, it took the entire neighborhood of, there's Desert Willows, thank you, Desert Willows, and carved it out, even though it is an integral part of this neighborhood. It took out the entire subdivision that Mr. Muse and Mr. Anderson live in and took it out of the rest of the neighborhood that is in 1. And so 1 works really well because it goes down Palm. It's pretty much everything west of Palm and everything south of Pearson. And you look at the simplicity of 1 and at 3.1, and it makes it much easier for a resident to determine where they're at and for a candidate to determine where they need to campaign. And I would respectfully disagree with my colleague, Mr. Nunez, that there is much of a difference between 1 and 1.1 when it comes to the racial construction of it. It's statistically insignificant. The Latino population in draft 1 is 77.0, it's 72.5. So it's still a majority district, and satisfies all of the concerns of the California Voting Rights Act. But it doesn't divide neighborhoods. And one of the key pieces is to make sure that we respect neighborhoods and communities of interest. And the original map 1 does not do that, as admitted by the demographers who built it. They just used census tracts and added them up until they got appropriate numbers on it. So as much as I agree with my colleagues about the going to this and that it will make a drastic change in our city, and I don't think it is for the best, I do believe that map 1.1 is the one that we should support, and because of all of the reasons that I just stated, and I think it will work and it will satisfy the Voting Rights Act. That's all I've got.
Mr. Betts?
So just to follow on this, I understand correctly from Mr. Eli, every one of the maps meets the criteria for, we didn't, 1.1 or map 1 and map 1.1 both meet the criteria that we need to meet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So with respect to Mr. Nunez's comment on this process and wanting more time, I think it's a legitimate sentiment that he expresses. I think all of us share that sentiment. I just think it's a matter of we've looking at what we looked at back. When did we first look at this? In December?
We got the letter in December.
Yeah, and so, and the sentiment of the council was, no, let's fight this. then expert opinion came in, and speaking to Donna Lozano's comment, came in that it's not a matter of going and fighting it, trying to win. The assessment that came back for us, which was very sobering, was you can fight it, you can spend a lot of money, and you're still going to lose. The law doesn't bear out what we want to do. And as we see lots and lots of times, especially in the state of California, the law doesn't bear it out. We've had votes up here where I said, what are we voting for? Just let the legislature show up here and they can decide this. So anyhow, now this brings a lot of changes for the city, but I know, and I'm pretty certain this council takes a view of the entire city as important. I know I'm going to fight as vociferously for every inch of the city as I have. Just happen to be in a district. Reality says you're going to have to pay some close attention to if you want to get reelected. You're going to pay attention. You can't get these people in your district mad at you by focusing everywhere else. So there is an inherent problem there, is that it starts to focus the council members' attention elsewhere. As I'm thinking about right now, I'll be at large for the next 2 years or whatever, 2.5 years. So I'm still, technically on the same terms, but it weighs on you. Say, wow, okay, geez, somebody's calling me from outside the district. How much attention do I have to give them versus, somebody who's right next door going to be screaming at me and voting against. So, and those are the practical realities of this. And that's what I think you've seen happen in different places, different cities that have gone through this as they've wrestled with major issues. Palm Springs and where to locate a homeless shelter. One person in that district voted against it and everybody voted for it. COD, issue going on down there. So I don't know. Nobody likes the process except I guess the people pushing it. But we can't fix our city by compartmentalizing into what our district is. I still got to drive through town to get to my district. I got to drive through town to get to anybody else's district that's going to be here. Hacienda needs some attention, and I'm going to fight just as heck. I'm not just going to drop the beautification of Hacienda and the east side, eastern arterial. Everything that we got going on, I'm not going to sit there and say one part of town is okay to be crime-ridden just as long as it's not my part. That's not going to be the reality up here. I know my council members here, and I know everybody is concerned about every part of this city. So, but we've got to live with this. So now the mayor's sitting there going, okay, well, which map do you like, right?
That's what I'm here for, and listening to you, which map you like.
So everybody's looked at gerrymandered maps and seen them in their worst examples where it's just a little sliver connecting something and then just like a snake, and I don't want to see that. And when I looked at every one of these maps, I said, man, it looks like a jigsaw puzzle, literally. And the easiest pieces on a jigsaw puzzle where they just went right together, nice and neat. And I'm looking at 1.1, and you got one side of Palm Drive in most districts is one set of voters, and the other side of Palm Drive is other voters. If you look at map 1, well, if you go up to this street, it's on the left side or the west side, then you go a little further, and it's on both sides, then you go a little further, and it gets very, very confusing for the voting public to make a decision. My preference would be not to do any of this. I don't have that choice. I would love to hear the argument in favor of 1 over 1.1. My concern is, and I don't think map 3 is even worth considering. That's such a small sliver in District 3. I know it's just geographic, but I don't see anything in map 3 or 3.1 that I like at all. So I could be convinced to go for 1 if I could see that there was some big difference in the makeup that would cause us to go that way. But my understanding is they're very, very close. Is there anything that I can see in here that says they're not close? That there's a big disparity here now? Show me.
There's your 2 right there. This is 1. There's your.
So Mr. Betts and Mr. Gardner are looking at the population
so you're
maps
looking
on
at
the back page.
77 versus 72.5 on the Hispanic, and I understand 77 would be great.
But the argument wasn't from Mr. Nunez on that. It was on the fact that the voting that number is not what he's worried about. He's worried more about the voting population of that percentage.
And what are those numbers?
Did I say that correctly? We don't know exactly.
We don't know who turns out to vote.
We don't.
We never know.
No.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what I think his argument, again, not trying to speak for you, I get in his argument about slowing this process down, which I think if we could legally, we would have. I think we all argued that at the beginning. The city attorney looked at us and goes, I'm sorry, you can't. She's always a bad news person
Well, and
sometimes.
staff served us very well in bringing in outside expert,
Yeah.
separate from the demographer, to sort through these issues. So, unless I see some really good reason to go for a jigsaw puzzle, I'm more interested in going for one that's going to be very clear for people to understand where they're voting and who they're voting for, as long as it doesn't create some other problem that would get us to run afoul of the law or afoul of what would be right. So if it's just a matter of a little bit, I would go with 1.1. If it's a very significant difference, then I could, at least one is closer. That's where I'm at.
And I'll start round two if there is a round two, or if maybe I'll end it here. When I looked at the maps, and no disrespect to anybody's comments about one, I thought 1 and 1.1 were pretty much the same. And when the comments came out about 1.1 just cleaning up 1, it made more sense, I think, to all of us. If you do look at our boundaries and you know our city, and I've lived here my whole life, I've driven through every street in the city, and I've driven through every neighborhood in the city. Again, I think every neighborhood is diverse. I don't think this does not accomplish what the Voter Act really wants to accomplish at all. But if you look at what some of the criteria is, which is keeping neighborhoods within neighborhoods, in 1, you do separate the top portion of District 1. You separate from Pearson down, which those Desert Willow, and a couple of the side streets there also. Coma and a few other streets. You really do separate that neighborhood. And then in District 4, you reach across Palm Drive into the Agua Dulce area by the post office. And what you could end up happening, because most of the population in District 1 is right in that same district, you could have 2 people representing those neighborhoods which literally live in that same district. So to be fair, if you really are trying to separate neighborhoods and make districts of people that are going to represent their neighborhoods, I think 1.1, the cleanup from the comments that were made by Mr. Anderson, Mr. Muse, and those neighborhoods really accomplished what we needed to accomplish. And if you look at District 3, which would be Ms. Pye's district, where she lives, it actually opens it up for growth also. The Tuscan Hills project, if that gets going, with the Walton Group, which we keep hearing rumor that that's going to start building sooner or later. That could be 200-300 homes in there. It meets the criteria for that, because I believe is it 5 or 10 years we have to go back, and every 10 years. So we wouldn't be back to this process for 10 more years, and that District 4, if it stayed the way it was in Map 1, could end up exploding with their growth, because they do have development going on in that district. So adding that back into District 3 gives it an opportunity, because there's nowhere else for District 3 to grow. District 2 has plenty of room to grow, District 1 has plenty of room to grow, and District 4 is already growing in the Hacienda Heights area. So this gives District 3 an opportunity to grow also. Again, that's the reason for it. I don't think there's a big enough argument to go back to that, and I think 1.1 accomplished what the public hearings wanted it to, is to clean up those. And I'll give everybody another opportunity, or I'll call for a vote.
Black and brown is what you talked about. I know you can't really go by the voting, but if you go by the voting on 1 and you go by the voting on 2, it's more equitable across the line. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. In 1,
Referring to Map 1? There's Map
Yes.
1 and Map 1.
Map 1.
Okay, and Map 1.1.
and I look at the voting age for 1-1,
Mm-hmm.
it's more equitable across races.
You're saying Map 1 is?
Yes,
Map 1 or 1.1?
1.1.
Got
And there is a higher percentage for the black race on 1/1. So should I be going that way if it's all about race? I don't think so. I think we should go with 1/1, which makes it more equitable for all of us. Let you think about it.
Anyone else?
Question on annexation. We said this goes every 10 years, but if we were annexed in a huge swath of our sphere, huge area of our sphere, that would change things significantly. We'd go back and do this again, right? Okay, because that came up in the public comments during the hearings, people talking about the sections that weren't in the city, what happens to them? So the answer on that is if we decided as a council that we were going to go annex all of our sphere, hint, hint, that we would have to go back and do this process again.
You can't just decide that anyway. They have to vote for it.
Well, if I remember correctly, we don't have to wait to 10 years. We could all of a sudden in 5 years go, hey, the city's growing and it looks like it's diversifying in certain areas. We need to change it and let's go back out.
Can we go back in 2 years and do this again?
Want to spend all that money?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what would trigger a 2-year, but generally what cities do is, obviously they do 10 years, just due to the census. But if there is, significant reason why as to, hey, we need to do this again, let's say we've got a huge influx of population or something, I don't know, some kind of unforeseen event, I would need to look into it, but arguably the city would be able to.
Okay, so a significant reason might be that we felt rushed to go and meet a deadline.
So,
and we have 2 years now to take a more detailed look at it, and having further study and seeing changes, we want to change it. That's not a good reason?
I don't know. That's something I'm going to need to research.
I got a shaking and no from the city manager, so.
He kind of did the sideways thing. I'm going to look into it.
I believe David can answer that question.
David, could you answer that question?
I'm not sure exactly how everything relates to the district formation relative to people just redistricting, but the Fair Maps Act basically limits redistricting to once every decade unless there is a significant reason based on population change. So if you annex a big area or if a big area is developed that would cause a significant shift in the population of the districts, then that's the only reason that the Fair Maps Act allows. There obviously are a number of different elements that could bear on this, so there may be other reasons, but that's the reason that is articulated in the Fair Maps Act.
You said once a decade. Could that be in 2 years and then not do it for another, you couldn't do it for 8 years after that, or you have to wait 10 years to do it?
Well, that's why I was saying I'm not sure how the fact that this is a district formation rather than a redistricting. If this were a normal redistricting for a city, then this would be the once in a decade. But since this is a district formation, I don't know if that might be something different. And so I think, there's things for the city attorney to research. But under normal circumstances, that would be the only reason. If you redistricted now, the only reason why you would do it again would be if there's a significant population change that can be documented.
Thank our consultants for all the work that you did on this. I know we still have to clean some stuff up after this vote. Oh, I do have another comment.
No, and you kind of beat me to the punch. I just wanted to tell David and the folks at Diazland that they did an absolutely wonderful job. I mean, it was a tough thing. You come into a city that you don't know. You're thrown this job. You did the first map you did was based solely on population, and you admitted you didn't know the boundaries and the neighborhoods. You took all of the community concerns to heart during our public hearings. And took those in and factored them in. So I really wanted to commend you for the job that you did, and for our consultants that reached out to the community and hosted the community events. You did a fantastic job as well. both bilingual and having interpreters there and having people, giving people the opportunity to discuss it and comment on it in those situations. I think that we did the right job by hiring both of those firms, and I wanted to commend the job that they did.
If there's no final comments, please vote. $1.1.
Motion passes with Councilmember Nunez opposed.
Need the first reading?
It's the first reading of an ordinance of the City Council establishing a by-district election process pursuant to California Elections Code Section 10010 and adopting or adding new sections to Chapter 2.04 of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code to provide for City Council election districts. The ordinance will return on April 19th for second reading and adoption.
Thank you very much. Does the council want to continue through or take a 10-minute break? We'll go ahead and take 10, so it's 7:55. Be back at 8:05, please. All right, 2-minute warning, 2-minute warning. Going to get everybody back to their seats. We're going to get back to the meeting. All right, we're going to get back to the meeting now. On our administrative calendar, item number 3 is a lighting, landscaping, maintenance district, and drainage access. Assessment district, initiating processing proceedings for the fiscal year 2022-23 levy and collection of assessments. Before Mr. Buckheim, you give your presentation, there's 4 of us that have to recuse ourselves on 2 of these items. So there's 3 resolutions. What we can do is, it's been suggested by the city clerk, as we have in the past, even though instead of doing item 2 and 3 separate from 1 and we all participate in 1, what we can do is just draw straws once if everybody's in agreement. 2 people leave the room, the other 3 make the decision, and we go from there. Is everybody?
I'm not, on my purpose for recusal, I think landscape lighting and maintenance district 1 is so specific. I really think that should have been 2 separate agenda items. I would love to bifurcate this.
All right, that's what I am doing.
So take the vote on 1
Okay.
separately, and then the 2, we all draw straws would be my preference.
No problem, we can do that. So we'll get the report first, and we'll take item recommendation number 1 first, and then we're going to bifurcate the other 2.
And then with that, I'm going to state my recusal. Is that okay,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
My wife and I own a hair salon that's directly smack dab in the middle of district number 1, so I will be leaving the dais.
Anyone else in the all-city landscape and lighting maintenance district need to leave the dais? No one else is leaving? Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So before your 3 resolutions to initiate the proceedings for the levy and collection of assessments for the city's landscape and lighting districts and the drainage assessment district. The funding generated from these assessments will be used for operations, maintenance, repairs, and servicing of landscaping, sidewalks, trees, street lighting, park facilities, and street medians throughout the city for the 22-23 fiscal year. This is an annual process that requires the city to prepare the annual engineer's report, which will be presented to the City Council at the June 7th, 2022 meeting. After the required process, which includes a later public hearing, an annual levy based on the engineer's report will be placed on the Riverside County's property tax roll. So the first one, landscaping line district number 1, is actually a citywide district, so that encompasses the entire, everything within the city border.
Thank you for the report. Do I have any public comments on this? Anything on Zoom?
No.
Anyone in the audience? Kyle, you're the only one in the audience, sorry. Any comment on this? All right. Recommendations there, is there any?
I make a motion, we accept the staff's recommendation for landscape lighting District 1.
There's a motion by Mr. Gardner, is there a second? Second. Mr. Nunez is going to second, as soon as that's up on the screen. Any other comments? Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we'll get Mr. Betts back in the room, and we're going to draw straws. 4 of us will need to draw straws. While the city clerk's bringing up the straws, we'll state our recusals. I am recusing myself because my community is within one of the lighting and landscaping maintenance districts. Mr. Nunez?
Same, I'm excusing myself because my residence is.
And I am in one of the lighting or one of the flood control districts.
And Mr. Betts?
I have a home in at least one of the districts.
Got it. Okay, so our recusals have been stated. We draw straws. The 2 short straws leave the room, correct? All right, just want to get that correct. I've messed this up many times.
Well, that ain't a short one.
Take your stand.
I think I'm a short.
Ooh,
I'm shorty.
all right, you 2 leave the room.
You're supposed to save those. These are expensive.
Oh, yes.
They're the official straws.
He bought the Costco brand, so he's got a bunch of them. All right, 2 members of the council have left the room. For the record, Mr. Buckheim, I don't think your report's much different, but please.
Yes, so for the other 2 items, the landscaping lighting district number 2 and the drainage assessment district are also 2 proceedings for assessments for landscaping, lighting, drainage items, and these are for different residential zones throughout the city.
Anyone on Zoom like to speak to this item or these items? All right, I'll make a recommendation that we support resolutions on number 2 for the lighting landscaping maintenance district 2 and the resolution for the drainage assessment district number 1. Do I have a second?
Yes.
And discussion, Mr. Betts.
So a couple of points here. One, to be clear, we are only initiating the process here. This will come back for a final vote based on your findings, correct?
Yes, this will come back for a public hearing and based on the findings and the engineer's report once it's completed.
Okay, and so the engineer's reports are going to come back and say, hi, here's what the cost is?
Yes, so the engineer report comes back saying here's what is going to be needed to maintain these areas, and this is what the cost will be. And then based on that, what the assessment we would need for those.
So the assessment could go up in the next proceeding?
The actual amount of the assessment could not go up, but the city also has, depending on what the actual costs, how much of the assessment we could levy. So there are some of the districts where we are not levying the full assessment because the costs it doesn't require that.
So in the ones for the residential communities, those are more flexible than the citywide one?
Yes.
Okay, so, and my understanding is on one of these, I had a meeting with the city staff, and I don't have the exact numbers here, but for example, we're not collecting nearly as much as it's costing us to maintain at least the citywide district.
Yes, the citywide district, we are not collecting up on the assessment, and that is subsidized by the general fund.
Okay, and then the residents, this is my last question, the residents have always had some questions about, well, what are we getting for this? So, example, Sunset Springs or Rolling Hills or Hacienda Heights, they all have these districts, and they got this landscaping going on. How much is the city taking for administration of this cost?
The city does not take any administration costs for
There's none?
No, the only administration costs are going to Webb Municipal for providing the levying services. The city actually does not take any.
So the full amount that's paid on the property tax for the landscape lighting and maintenance is the full amount that goes into maintaining that without any city overhead or cost applied?
Correct, but not the full amount, so less whatever the administrative costs for Webb. So
Only for Webb?
Yes.
How much do they charge?
Depending on the size of the zone, a couple $100s,
Okay.
maybe a couple thousand.
All right, so you always got people saying, oh, we're not getting any landscaping because the city's taking all the money, and that's just not true, right?
No, the city does not have administrative. The services are contracted out, so we do not always have like city staff working on that. So the city does not take administrative costs on that.
Does this include the various commercial ones that we've imposed, that we've put in place, or this is only the residential ones?
These items are just residential ones. For the commercial ones, those are the CF, what are known as the CFDs, or community facilities districts.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I
Anything
waited a
else?
long time to ask you those because I've always got the short straw and couldn't ask
Yeah,
those
that's
questions.
true.
so.
All right, please vote.
Really, in 10 years, I've
Motion passes unanimously.
got the short straw.
All right, we'll grab the other two council members. Do you need to read? You don't need to read these, right? Oh,
One more item for the Drainage Assessment District.
no, we did both of those at the same time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was a motion to approve both of those.
That was quick.
Item number 4 is a funding request from the Health Assessment and Research for Communities, which is also known as HARC. Mr. Siriano?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. HARC, which stands for Health Assessment and Research for Communities, has submitted a letter requesting a funding contribution in the amount of $5,000 to support their endeavors towards the 2022 survey. HARC conducts a survey of the entire Coachella Valley every 3 years, which covers demographics, social and economic needs, health behaviors, healthcare access, preventative care, mental health, and more. Organizations in Desert Hot Springs, such as Shelter from the Storm, Desert Hot Springs Family Resource Center, and LILAC rely on HARC's data to help prioritize health needs, create programs and services to address those needs, and obtain funding to implement those programs. Previously, the City Council approved requests from HARC, $5,000 towards the 2016 Coachella Valley Community Health Survey, and $5,000 towards the 2019 Coachella Valley Community Health Survey. That concludes my report. We also have Dr. Jenna Lecomte-Henley, who is the Chief Executive Officer of HARC, available for any questions.
Great. I know this is something that we've supported through all these years, and it's always good to have this information. Dr. Henley, would you like to say anything to this?
Yes, thank you so much for giving me the time to speak. I am a huge fan of Desert Hot Springs because you guys were the first city to ever support the survey, and I think that really galvanized many of the other cities who didn't want to be outdone or left behind. So I am forever grateful to you for donating towards the survey these past 2 cycles. And thanks to your initiative, we've had 7 of our 9 cities now who have contributed towards the survey. I'm really excited to share with you that this survey, which is our 6th survey, I can't believe I'm saying that already, we have found a way to make it more affordable than ever. We're going to be moving to a paper-based survey because so few people pick up phone calls, and this is modeled after the California Health Interview Surveys protocols out of UCLA. We recently did a survey using these same protocols for the county that was countywide that gathered more than 9,000 participants. So we have great confidence in our ability to collect data this way. And I know I've been pleased with how Desert Hot Springs has used our data in the past. You, along with other cities, have really advocated for your residents with this data, and I hope that we can continue to provide it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I do hope you will agree to help support this important survey so that we can provide free data for everyone, all the nonprofits, all the cities, all of the healthcare agencies who need to make the case of why our community is unique and what their needs are. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you for that. Before I get to council comments, we'll take is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak besides?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Henley, thanks for coming in and making this request. I know we have supported it in the past, and I believe we will again tonight. Earlier, I don't believe you were here, but we had a presentation from the Riverside County folks on a lot of important health data that is, to say the least, somewhat alarming for our community and the lack of health care and healthcare resources that we have here. I think your study and your data will be very helpful in augmenting that. So I'm just going to ask you if when you complete the survey, if we can ask you to come back and give a presentation of that data so that we can further understand it, and then we can work together as a council on making sure that we get the needed healthcare resources in this city that we really do need.
Oh, I would love that. It's my passion when things are, when the data is used. And I'm also pleased to tell you that with this new method, we should have 2022 data delivered to you in 2022. So we plan to release the data in December.
Perfect. I have a comment from Mr. Betts.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. I'm listening to my fellow council members' comments saying he hopes that you will come back and present us with the data. And it was, 2-3 years ago that you came before us? And I was going to vote no because I hadn't seen anything, because the previous time we went the whole time and we never saw anything come back to us. And then this time I saw this on the agenda and asked the city manager, says, well, where the heck is the report? Because specific to the motion the last time was, okay, we'll vote yes, or I'll vote yes, and you end up voting yes, but you agreed to provide us this data when it came in, just as Gary Gardner has now asked for it. And it was only in a meeting today with the city manager that said, hey, where is this stuff? We were supposed to have had it. And I understand he's now subsequently reached out to you and that he got it, but I'm not getting a commitment coming back the other way for the $5,000.
I apologize for that, council member. I did mail copies of the survey to each and every one of you at City Hall in April of 2020.
Okay. So we have it then.
We do.
It sounds like it came through the mail in April of 2020.
Okay.
So we didn't set it up as a presentation, but yeah, we did get the hard copy.
Okay. All right. So
Mayor,
you did
if
what
I
you were
may,
supposed to then.
If I may, that was during the pandemic, and I know that there was a lot of confusion that people weren't coming into the office, so there may have been something missed.
How'd you send that in? Did you send it to each of us individually? I'm afraid to ask now.
I sent it to City Hall with a letter specifying that each copy was for the City Council, yes.
Okay, so the problem may be internally that we didn't get that. My suggestion would be anytime you're sending something to a city council, address it to each council member with a separate email. Okay.
Mayor, if I may, I'm seeing some nodding heads, so apparently some council members did get it, so it was distributed.
We get a lot of information, and what Mr. Betts is alluding to is the fact that when we get into our mailbox, sometimes it can get lost very easily. So I think what you're trying to get at is that when the information is presented, Dr. Henley, maybe you can reach out to our city clerk and say you want to come back and visit us in person and give the presentation. That's what I was asking for. Does that work?
That would be fabulous. I would love to do that.
That works? Good. Okay, so I'd love to see a presentation on this data, maybe presentations ahead of the meeting or even as a formal agenda item. So that's the condition that we get this. I don't know. I didn't see anything. So, all right. My apologies if I hammered you and I shouldn't have. And but I got Jan's over there. You can't see her. I don't know if you can see her, but she's scowling at me. She's scowling at me. Ross, you got your email. Well, I didn't get it. So anyhow, okay. So good. I'll be happy to see what that date is.
Mr. Nunez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Henley, so we did have want to echo what our council member Gardner said, is that we did have a presentation from Riverside County Emergency Management Department pilot program that they're going to be having here in Desert Hot Springs. We even got a coordinator specialist to do this assessment also, so I'm hoping that you can collaborate with them. That way you're not reinventing the wheel, and ultimately the city and the residents benefit from both of you guys working together. One thing I really wanted to focus on is health and wellness, and then also the mental health in the city of our residents. So I think with the risk factors that they had presented earlier was heart disease and or something else. And I think focusing on community health and wellness, I think that's a great opportunity for us to begin to talk and develop a strategy how we combat that. So I'm hoping that we can work together with your statistics and you working with the County of Riverside to get that done, that survey.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yes, we have a very extensive section on mental health because it is one of the only sources of data on that. So we have questions about whether they've been diagnosed with mental health disorders, and if so, which ones. And we also have questions about whether they have mental health issues that have concerned them to try to get at those who maybe have lower access to care and have not been able to get diagnosed. We also have questions on there about whether they were not able to get mental health medication or mental health treatment that they needed in the past year, and to assess those barriers. So I strongly support. We also have questions on loneliness that I'm really excited to see if those have changed over the pandemic with people sheltering at home, and social isolation. We've also added some new questions this cycle on, of course, questions pertaining to COVID, but also issues pertaining to racism and issues pertaining to the environment. So I think it will be really a wealth of information, and I'm happy to work. We work very closely with public health. As I mentioned, we just completed a survey with them that was countywide, but I saw on your agenda it was the Emergency Management Division. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, we are in talks with them to help them out with some other data. So I will make sure to reach out to my contact there and see if there's any way we can collaborate on their work with you.
Thank you, Dr. Henley.
Jan?
Councilmember Betts, I wasn't scowling. I should have.
I'm just having some fun with you.
Let me tell you how they started. They started 5-6 years ago, and they've always have done comprehensive data. They started doing it with hospitals, and it helped hospital get better accreditation. I was on the committee in the beginning, and simple things. You ask people what kind of vegetables were they eating, and they would say potato chips. So we had to narrow it down. One of the main things that they did for Desert Hot Springs was, along with the healthcare district, is how we got our Desert Recreational Center. We worked really hard on that, and they did it just for Desert Hot Springs. With respect to the data that they give, we have gotten all 5 of them. They're very thick. I use it to give to the homeless committee because they use that information to get grants for homelessness. So this is very, very much worth it. I'm done.
And just to add one other comment, because it prompted my memory, which isn't the greatest these days as I get older, but what Jan said, Councilmember Pai, when the Borrego Health District came to Desert Hot Springs, part of the reasons that they were able to open up their clinics and do the things they were doing is partly on this assessment. So I continue to support it. We've supported it for years now, and I think we need to continue to support it, and it's great to hear other cities are supporting it.
One more question.
Yes.
Do you produce a hard copy of this report?
Yes, we do produce the hard copy. That is the one that was mailed to you all. And if you'd like, I can mail.
I would love to see another one. I just went through all my email and didn't see.
No, it's a booklet. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. I think you would notice it if you saw it. You'd probably go, oh yeah, that's the one.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And Dan, thank you so much for your comments. It's people like you using the data that really makes it worthwhile. And it was actually 16 years ago that ARC was first founded and first started doing these surveys. And thank you, Mayor, for mentioning Borrego. I am a proud Borrego board member and very proud of all the service that they provide to low-income and uninsured communities.
Thank you for all the work you do on this. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we grant the funding request from Health Assessment Research Communities for $5,000.
Second.
Can you push your, or you can't do your screen here? There it goes.
There we go.
All right, there's a motion, and Ms. Pye, will you second it on the screen there? Is there any other comments? We didn't have any public comments. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Item
Thank
number
you all
5.
so much. I will look forward to presenting the results to you in January of 2023 at your council meeting then.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Item number 5 is a military equipment use policy ordinance per Assembly Bill 481. Chief Ensign.
This will be, Deputy Chief Shaw is here for this, but this is just a review at this time. There's actually a public hearing set for this on next meeting, April 19th.
I thought you were just hanging out with us tonight. I think he needs to give a report.
Can we dispense with the report since we read the agenda item?
I think because it's an Assembly bill, we should probably listen to the report.
So the purpose of the report is to get any kind of council input pursuant to the AB bill. If the council would like the report, of course, it could be given, but then of
I
course.
think just in caution, because of the process we're taking, you know I would always join you on that process, but this one, I think we have to listen to this one. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. Yeah, I'll be brief. As mentioned, April 15th, I'll return with a formal presentation and a public hearing on Assembly Bill 481, which is a military equipment use policy ordinance. This was signed by Governor Newsom in September of 2021 and then made law January 1st, 2022. The information that you've been previously provided tonight, I am here to answer any questions you may have on that information and to make a couple of notes. For the military equipment ordinance, in your package you'll see the Desert Hot Springs qualifying military equipment. What's important to note from that is that list of equipment is an accumulated list from all law enforcement agencies in Riverside County. The reason that it is a list encompassing all those agencies is so that we maintain our mutual aid agreements with those agencies, so that if we call upon mutual aid, for instance, from Riverside Sheriffs, and they come into the city of Desert Hot Springs, according to this ordinance or this law, EB 481, they are authorized to use that equipment within the city of Desert Hot Springs. Included in your packet, it also included an Exhibit A, which shows the quantity specifically of military equipment inventory for the Desert Hot Springs Police Department. You'll notice in that much of that equipment that's in the ordinance or in the policy, we do not personally own the Desert Hot Springs Police Department. We have a very small number of items. For instance, we don't own armored vehicles or anything of that nature. So it's important that I just wanted to make that clarification to you. Should you have questions about that, I'm happy to answer any more information on that. And then, as I said before, April 15th, we'll be back with a formal presentation and a public hearing on this. And then at that point, action will be required from you.
All right, do we have any public comments on this item?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. We'll entertain questions or directions to staff. If you have none, go forth.
Thank you, sir.
It is a receive and file. We will not be taking any vote on this. We'll move to item 6, which is the County Services Area 152, CSA 152 budget and proposed assessment for fiscal year 2022-23. Public Works Director, Mr. Haker.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. County Service Area 152, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Stormwater Program, CSA 152, was formed by the County of Riverside. CSA 152 is necessary to fund requirements for public agencies to implement and comply with the National Clean Water Act permit. All properties within the city limits are assessed a CSA 152 fee based on their corresponding benefit assessment units. The BAU rates are calculated based on the type of use of the property. The city can only utilize CSA 152 funds for implementing the NPDES programs. The city expenses include citywide catch basin cleanup, NPDES regional permit fees, NPDES state permit fees, and a portion of expenses for street sweeping services. Current rates in CSA 152 are $10 per BAU. The maximum rate was established by CSA 152 at $10 per BAU. Therefore, no balloting per Proposition 218 was required at the maximum rate. However, any assessment being proposed that exceeds the predetermined maximum rate would require a public hearing and balloting process. At this BAU rate, residential parcels are assessed $10 per year. The city currently collects approximately $146,400, which covers the $146,400 annual budget and expense, resulting in a reserve of approximately $0. All additional MPDES expenses are paid through other sources, including the city's general fund. These funds and proposed expenditures are included in the adopted budget for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Staff is recommending that the City Council adopt the resolution and direct the city clerk to transmit a certified copy of the resolution to the county. That's my report.
Any public comments?
No, we do not.
Any comments from council? Entertain a motion.
Move that we adopt the County Service Area 162 budget proposed assessment for fiscal year 2022.
You're not on.
I
Mr.
move.
Gardner moved the recommendations.
Okay. You don't want me to repeat it?
Just in case they didn't hear you. And there is a second by Mr. Nunez. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
We had one item pulled from the consent calendar. It's a second reading and adoption of an ordinance approving the development agreement by and between the City of Desert Hot Springs and JHW Land Investment LLC. Do you want a full staff report, Mr. Betts, or do you have a?
No,
which
just my comments relatively brief. Normally on a consent calendar, its items go through on a second reading. There's no problem with this one, but this one was a significant matter. And so I thought it called for a second vote. I did have some questions of staff, though, because there were some issues raised relative to transportation circulation on this project, specifically a wall. One item is a wall. When we pull out onto Palm Drive from this development, nobody's going to be able to see anything to the left. Have we made any progress on that?
We actually are working with our city attorney's office and code enforcement to initiate some proceedings against that property owner as they are encroaching in our right-of-way.
So that's being taken care of. Okay, the other one, I'm not sure you're going to be able to take care of, but maybe it did. We got approximately 1,400 cars are going to be dumping onto Palm Drive through one entrance and exit for this city. And there was some concern that perhaps something going out to West Drive would be a way to alleviate that. There was some conversation that a property had been purchased and sold. I checked with the guy who's buying it, and he's only got an option at this point. So it's debatable whether or not, how quick that relief will come. But we've already got people complaining about the congestion on Palm Drive, specifically at Two Bunch Palms. So I just wanted to see if we had a second opportunity to where either staff can, one, have you addressed that issue of circulation down West Drive absent a property owner coming in there and actually paving it? Have you explored any options for that? I understand this guy's going to move pretty quickly on this project, on building it. So, and if not, how are we going to deal with 1,400 cars piling out of this place in the morning to go to work? Is everybody going to have to turn right? You're going to block left turn lanes? Have you started any of that work to figure out how, it's not an insignificant problem, 1,400 cars piling onto Palm Drive?
So we have actually started the evaluation, as we talked about at the last council meeting. Staff, when this original project was brought forward, committed to the council that we would bring forth some plans for the council's consideration to address the ingress, egress, and traffic in that area. And we were doing that within the next several months to bring that back to you all.
Okay, and so in fairness to you, it's a bit early to expect you have something, but I just want to raise the point again, and you are working on it. And none of that's going to change my vote, but that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Do we know where we got the $1,400? Cars, I said dollars. Where did you get 1,400 cars?
The estimated number of people living there, you got that many units, everybody having 2.3 cars per unit, and visitor
400
trips.
units times 2 is 800.
We get visitor trips. It's a standard national formula. It might be expanded a little bit.
I was just asking the
There
question.
might be a little exaggeration in there, but not much. But the
800 to 1,400 is
service calls, visitors, friends.
But it is going to be built over time, so it would be 1,400 right as
Yeah.
soon as they break ground.
And most people go up and down their street. If you'd be amazed how many times you go up and down your street in a day. So it's probably could be even higher than 1,400.
I know I'm not going to change your mind. I wasn't trying to change your mind. I'm really just trying to understand I know this project's going to take, anywhere from 2 to 3 years to probably fully build out. And so we do have time to mitigate that issue.
I didn't
And
expect.
if that person that was purchasing that property after, he told me he had purchased it and he was actually ready to do it. So now I know he has an option. That does worry me too a little bit, but I think we have some avenues. Anyways, is there any other comments? And is there any public comments to this item?
No, there are not.
All right.
I will move the second reading of the development agreement between, approving the ordinance development agreement between the City of Desert Hot Springs and JHW Land Investments LLC.
I'll second it. Is there any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes with Councilmember Betts and Councilmember Nunez opposed. This is the second reading of an ordinance of the City Council approving the development agreement by and between the City of Desert Hot Springs and JHW Land Investments LLC related to the future development of residences at Ovation Project, a residential condominium project located on the west side of Palm Drive, north of 15th Avenue. The ordinance shall take effect in 30 days.
Do we have any public comments that didn't get to speak at the beginning of the meeting?
No, we do not.
Before I adjourn the meeting, I'll just note some dates of this month. April 12th will be the Planning Commission. April 14th will be the Public Safety Commission. Our next council meeting will be on April 19th. All those meetings are at 6 p.m. here in the chambers. Enjoy.
Car show on Saturday.
And Senior Center Car Show on Saturday. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your next couple weeks. We are adjourned.